necessarily combustible, then this is okay. But you don't want to go stick a fryer, next to a tower of napkins. Like, that's not a good idea. Burner pressure. So this is your gas pressure, your manifold pressure. Unlike typical gas pack heater or grandma's furnace, those usually run about 3 to 3.5 inches water column. Not with these. You always, when you're checking gas pressure, you do want to check the manufacturer's data tag and see what that pressure is, because according to this, 3 to 3.5 is not enough. You might be starting to burn, a little improper, and you might get some soot. If you're burning rich, it'll cause overheating and flame issues. So always go with what the sticker says. And if your sticker is missing, but you're able to get the serial number, the best place in the world for literature besides Google is Partstown. In fact, up on Partstown's website, I'll show you in a few, you can actually Google search or search your serial number, model number, and you can search the manuals. And oftentimes you can pull the literature from the website. Voltage running 115, that's standard for most like single fryers or double fryers. You start getting into the big stuff, then we're probably going to bump up to 230. Frequency, blah, blah, blah. Amps right here, 8 amps. So this is including, on this one, mostly the recirc pump that you drain the oil into the basket down below, and then it filters it, gets all the chunks of material out, from cooking, and then it'll pump the oil back up into the vat. And so there's, just like anything else, a minimum electrical requirement. Can everybody read that, or is that too small to read?
I can read it.
Okay, so on the left, it is more or less just a sequence of operation for this one fryer in particular. So from the time you turn it on to, it should be heating the oil and all that stuff, it tells you step by step what that system is designed to do with the boards. And just like everything else, when it comes to heating and using gas, there is a particular sequence of operations that if one of these things either doesn't make or it breaks, the whole entire thing shuts down. Like, you can be firing on all 5 cylinders, and if one little small thing happens, it kills the whole entire thing. Shuts your pilot valve off, shuts your main gas valve off, like everything. And that's a safety precaution. Most of gas burning appliances, they're mostly sequence of operation, but safeties. Like, if anything happens, we kill operations immediately, right? So this one's saying, power to the machine is on. If fuse F1 on the relay board is good, the AC indicator will illuminate and the controller will be supplied with 24 volts VAC. And if the drain valve handle is closed, the proximity switch will supply 24 to the drain valve interlock input at the controller. So I'm going to see if I can kind of hop back and forth. So as you guys might see on the Pitco fryers, there's your drain valve right there. Um, there's one of the control boards, the pump relay. Which is there anybody here that hasn't worked on a Pitco fryer like ever?
I haven't.
Okay, and that's okay. That's good. A lot of these things you've probably seen before to those that have ever looked, at a Pitco or been to a Five Guys and worked on their fryers. Um, got your temperature control right here. This is how hot do you want the oil, and then this little guy will work as basically your thermostat. Um, this right here, residential dude. I think, what was your name? Is it Chance? Sorry, I don't want to keep calling you residential dude.
You're all good. It's Carter.
Carter, sorry, dude. Okay, Carter. So Spud, you know what a Spud is, or orifice?
Yep.
Sweet. Those things boned me really bad one time. I had a natural gas orifice on a gas furnace that we had to do an LP conversion kit on because it was not running natural gas. It was out in Malad, Idaho, and lady had a buried tank and did not have the correct orifice for the correct gas, and it caused the inside of the heat exchanger to soot up something fierce. Yeah, at that point in time, I don't know how many years ago, didn't even know what that was, didn't care. But ever since then, I'll never forget that one furnace and how a teeny tiny little screw and orifice right there can screw everything up. In fact, it's still kind of a soft subject to talk about, but Cafe Rio. So when we were getting those Jade fryers in and they weren't working, they were taking, they wouldn't last. What we didn't know was that the spuds were incorrect. I believe on some of the fryers that they sent up to us to install, they were equipped with liquid propane orifices instead of natural gas. And they just simply will not work. That would be like trying to run an R448 TXV. You're trying to run like, I don't know, 134A or something like that. Like, it is just not going to work, right?
So quick, because I don't know the answer to, but how do you know if you have the right one?
Yep. So if you look at, I keep calling it a spud, it's an orifice, but if you look at the orifice, there will be a number stamped into it, and it should also say LP or NG for liquid propane or natural gas. Another thing is, I believe that the natural gas hole, so the little orifice hole, is larger than liquid propane. LP, you're going to have a much smaller hole. But those are just a couple of things to look at. And if all else fails, you can always pull up the information to the unit. As I said earlier, I pulled this off of Partstown's website, and it has every piece of information you could possibly want to know about this fryer is in this book. And believe it or not, majority, if not all, of the manufacturers out there that do kitchen appliances, you're going to be able to find this book either by Googling the model number or going to Partstown, selecting make, model, and then pulling up the literature that way.
After the meeting, can you share that specific manual with everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And I know too, just from my experience, reading through invoices, when he showed the picture of the drain valve, it's a very easy to overlook item, and a lot of like misdiagnoses. I've seen like people condemn gas valves, control boards, but all it ended up being was the little switch on that drain valve just not making contact, or like a wire pulled off. It's just a small little micro switch on the side of that.
Yeah.
And like Shane said, that simple one little thing will shut down the whole fryer.
Yep. And that's because it's a difference of how it's wired. Like a lot of our systems that we work on, like refrigeration, air conditioning, whatever, um, you can have a lot of your loads be wired in parallel, meaning if one of them drops out, right? If your condenser fan motor drops out, well, you're not going to lose your compressor because they're wired in parallel. Heating appliances, they wire everything in a series, or they'll wire it from the board. And what the board will do is it'll send out a signal. And if that signal comes back, the board recognizes that power has gone through that safety, and therefore, okay, next step, let's send power up to the next step, you know. Um, but literature will show these are a lot of the stuff that you're going to sit there and call tech support for and sit on the phone forever like I used to. You're going to find all that information right here, and oftentimes you can find the literature at least quicker than you can get a tech support guy on the phone. So I used to go from, never reading the manual to there was a guy, Laren, that worked in Idaho Falls. He always said RTFM. And it was funny because he didn't swear, but we knew what he meant. Read the effing manual. Because when you do, chances are you're going to find what you're looking for in this book. But right here, I don't recall which sensor this one is. High limit probe. Okay, so it's got component troubleshooting, and it'll always tell you too temperature and resistance. So if you've got a good means of proving your vat temperature, let's say you're using an infrared gun like this one right here. I personally use this one. It's $65 at Home Depot. It's good up to 752 degrees. Your standard K type that goes on your field piece meter, no, those are rated for like 300 degrees tops before they start to melt, or they'll just burn and break. But you definitely don't want to stick anything inside hot oil or a hot oven for that matter, unless it's rated for that temperature.
Well, and if you read too, it even tells you in the manual to let it cool down. Because, like,
Yep.
Have a high temperature probe, if you let it cool down and you're starting fresh, let's say like that chart starts at 60 degrees. I mean, even if it's just room temperature,
Yep.
I've had guys say that, like, why didn't you check the temp probe or whatever? Well, my thermometer doesn't go that high. Just shut it down for a while, or if it's in the middle of a bad time, schedule to come back before they open. And that's the other thing about Hotside is sometimes you have to get there before they open and be able to do all your tests and functions and everything else. But there's nothing also wrong. You don't have something that goes up to 700 degrees. Just shut it down for a while.
Yep. And this, I mean, it shows you all these up to 400 degrees. So hypothetically, yeah, you could disconnect it from the controller, test your ohms, and it'll get you ballpark somewhat close. These don't necessarily fail to a specific outrageous number like Manitowoc sensors and stuff do. So, if your fryer is like wicked hot, right? Like you can quickly check the ohms, and if it's somewhat, ballpark, then turn it off and let it sit for 10, 20 minutes. Let the oil kind of simmer down a little bit, and then see where it rests out at. Once you hit like 100 degrees, 120 degrees, or if you show up in the morning, it's likely going to be probably around 80, 70 degrees. There's your resistance. So if you're on a high limit, that you're not sure is that thing even reading accurately? Well, that's something you're really going to want to check. High limits that are reading over, meaning it's reading a much lower resistance, but we know that the VAT is low. So you would see something like this if the customer says, "Oh, well, my oil fryer's not working, and I turn it on, it runs for a minute, and then it shuts off." Well, sweet. That could be a couple of different things that's causing it to shut off. But this is something that you will always want to check, because it's cool if this thing fails low, meaning it's actually like 100 degrees and it trips because it thinks it's 450, 500 degrees. That's the best possible scenario for that high limit to fail. The other scenario is that you actually are up to 350, 375, and you're reading high ohms, meaning the fryer thinks you're only at 150 degrees, but in reality, you're way the hell hotter than that. Very, very important thing, because where did it go? Sorry, I lost my pages. Oil actually has something called a flash point. I mean, everything has a flash point to where it just combusts into flame. There are approximations and smoky points depending on the quality of oil. So if your oil starts smoking, I mean, that's a good indication that you're running way too hot. Most restaurants run their fryers around 350. They run their cooktops and stuff like that at 350, some 400, just depends. But I've been to restaurants that use peanut oil. That one, its flash point is, well, I think 450 degrees, or that's when it starts smoking. Vegetable oil around 400 degrees. So sometimes you got to take into consideration what kind of oil are they using in that vat. So most of the major components of any cooking appliance, but relating to oil fryers, is you got your gas valve. That's looks like a limit, resettable limit. Pilot assembly. These things right here are going to be your most common cause for failure, I believe, in most cooking appliances. This would be hooked up to your pilot valve on your gas valve, and as long as you've got proper flame rectification or volts DC, i.e. millivolts. In fact, the griddle over at Brucci's, that particular pilot valve requires at minimum 15 volts DC to hold that pilot valve open, and the main gas valve. Your volts DC that holds this dude open stems from the thermocouple that is on your pilot assembly. So on your pilot assemblies, this one's standing pilot, meaning it's going to have a flame shooting out the top right there, 24/7. The flame sensor or the thermocouple is the part that is sitting in the flame. And if it's not sitting in the flame, make it sit in the flame. Because as that thermocouple heats up, the hotter it gets, it starts producing millivolts and milliamps, volts DC, and it slowly builds up the hotter it gets to produce the volts DC to hold the pilot valve open or open your main valve. And what that is that's a flame proof. Pardon me one sec. So one of the biggest things with gas is proving you have flame. if you're on a gas furnace, you've got a flame sensor or a flame rod that sits in the flame, and that thing it does the same exact job that this thermocouple does. Um, a flame sensor, I believe, acts more like a thermal pile uh, or a thermocouple. I forget which is which, but I believe a thermocouple is actually a bunch of thermal piles in one piece. So there's a lot of little sensors in the tip of that thermocouple producing voltage to send to the gas valve or, to the board, wherever it's going to be reading that. Ignition module. I know everybody's seen one of these. Honeywell makes one. It's a little black one. You can put it on just about anything. So if you do have a failed ignition module, chances are you can get the aftermarket one from Johnstone Supply. This will run fryers. It'll run the Modine and Resner space heaters. It'll run, we've seen these. In fact, Captive Air has a version of their own. I think it's called a Maxitrol. It's linked with the gas valve, but essentially it's got main valve, pilot valve, 24 volts, spark, all this stuff, your W circuit. And this is the control board for, whatever hot appliance you're working on. This is, again, particular to that one fryer, Pitco. I learned the hard way where this little thing was at. This thing is very hard to get to. It's in the lower front right, and this is where your main power comes in. And then if you've got double fryers next to each other, like in Pocatello, the left wire coming in is from the wall, but then this right cable, it's a computer cable, hops from this box out and over to the next fryer over and lands same location. So that's just a hopscotch point for the 120. But right in here is your pump controls. So your relay, this guy right here, is inside this box. The transformer that produces all the low voltage for the control wiring is produced inside this box. So oftentimes, if you've got a fryer pump that you've thrown the handle, broken the magnetic switch, which tells the fryer controls, hey, we're draining, do not, shut the flame off. If you've got this broken, that activates this right here, this relay, which would turn on your pump. So if you get a call that they say, well, their cleaning pump or recirculating pump or something like that isn't putting the liquid back up into the vat, do your checks, check for incoming power, break this switch right here and see what happens. Get an amp draw on the pump. If you're not drawing an amp on the pump, you want to get into this little guy right here, and then you can trace your voltage on the relay and say, okay, well, if my magnet switch energized this because this was broken and this was supposed to turn my pump on, here's another piece to check right there. Any questions so far about what does what? All right, sweet. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit right here. It's going to be kind of hard to see, and I can actually pull this up on Partstown, get a zoom in picture, but this guy right here is hooked up to your pilot valve. That's what's going to be pushing out the pilot flame, and it's going to keep the flame, steady and in this area, or rather the gas. Right here is your electrode. got a little teeny tiny thing right there that when it gets voltage, 120 volts, it's going to directly arc to the little hood and create a spark. And when you've got this guy open and it's pumping gas inside here, and then you've got this guy right here creating a spark, well, now you've got fuel and you've got your ignition source. We should ignite and you'll have pilot flame. And then oftentimes, in order to get that pilot flame to stay lit, if anybody lit like a gas fireplace before, you got to light it, but then hold it. And you got to manually hold it so that way that pilot valve stays open and you're continuing to put gas through there. After about 30 seconds or a minute of continuous pilot hitting that thermocouple, you should be able to release the pilot and flame should hold, and then you're good to go. If you have one where you light it and you've been holding it 2-3 minutes and it's still, as soon as you release the button, you lose your flame, then I would be looking at you're not getting proper flame rectification. Your gas valve is saying you don't have enough volts DC to hold me open. This is just a blown up version of the electrical schematic for that particular fryer. A lot of them are going to look the same. These can be a little bit hard to read and understand, but once you read them over and over and over, they start to become pretty easy. Hold on one sec. Cold Tech Refrigeration.
Hi, this is the answering service. We have a message.
Okay.
I haven't been able to get a hold of the on-call.
Oh yeah, he's on a call right now. Do you want to text me the information and then I can send it over to him?
Yes, I will do that.
All right, awesome, thank you. So a lot of them are going to look the same. They're going to look confusing, and they're going to have lots of numbers and stuff like that, lots of letters. Does anybody get confused by this style of schematic? Like, is there anybody here that looks at this and just has no idea what anything is and anything like that?
Me, Shane, I don't understand any of it.
Okay. Was that John?
Yeah, I'm just messing with you.
Well, I just want, because it's like this type of diagram, I personally don't like this style. I like ladder diagrams where you got one line here, and then all of your loads are in the middle, and it tells you the parts that are in a series versus the ones that are just off by their own. But essentially, this is the back of that box that I was talking about, right over here on the back side here. That's where we're coming in with this power right here. This one says 115 volts coming in, and then this one next to it is going to the next fry pot over. And if there is no other fry pot next to it, don't worry about that. And then it just tells you at J13. So this jack, a J is jack, P is plug. Right here, jack and plug, jack and plug. This one right here is just a jack. That's the female fitting. It even tells you where this thing is specifically supposed to go. And then line power goes up to J11 if you have a basket lift. So I haven't done a lot of work in restaurants that are automated enough that they have these basket lifts. But if it did have one, that's where that would go. Low voltage, here's your temperature control, drain valve input, 24 volts common. You're going to see a big plug, and then these wires are just going to scatter all over the place. But eventually, those wires do make themselves to each of the loads. Got a high limit in there showing that on this right here, between 1 and 2, you're going to have a high limit. And so when you're looking at your schematic, if you're having a hard time tracking down where some of these parts are, or maybe you're just not quite yet familiar with what part is what, like what's the name of that part, what's it do? A lot of times you can figure that out by looking at the schematic. And you can find this right here. This is jack and plug 2, and it's near the blue spark control board. And then there's your gas valve. So look in that area or look on the board and find where it's, pertains to this. And then you'll see, okay, well, if I test 1 to 3 right here and I've got 0 voltage, then chances are that limit's closed. If you do check voltage there and you've got 24, chances are that switch is open, or vice versa. Some of the tools that you can get that will make your life easy. This guy right here, I think, I don't remember who makes it, but that thing will plug right into your field piece, or your K-type meter or whatever. And this one's cool because it's made to sit right on top of a grill and a griddle. We can use those.
It's Cooper Atkins. I actually have one of those in the K-type for the probe. It's in my cart on Amazon. It's like $73 or some shit, or some crap. Sorry, but yeah, Cooper Atkins.
And I actually picked this one up off Amazon too. This one's good, I believe, up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit. So, and it hooks right up to my field piece meter. But this one's rated. I mean, it's metal jacketed. This thing is built to run and pick up those high temperatures. So if you're working on like a small oven or a toaster heater or something like that, and you want to confirm what's my temperature, you can throw one of these dudes in there, rest it on the rack, or in fact, it comes with an alligator clip. It's not oh, there it is right there. You can clip it to excuse me, a rack, an oven rack, get it right, somewhere in the middle. Again, infrared camera. This thing is awesome for fryers, I think, because what I do is on fryers, if you look into it and look down, you're going to see your overload. So your temperature overload or your high limit, but then you're going to see the bulb that is your thermostat essentially. And so I like to shoot those two things, particularly with this, and put the red dot right on the tip, running up and down the middle and whatnot, and see what this says for temperature. Give or take, this thing hasn't really done me wrong yet. So I like it. It's a good way to check like that temperature, or you could even check an oven with it, This guy, who doesn't know what that is, right here in the bottom right hand corner? Does everybody know what that part is, or that tool? Okay, sweet. Manometer for checking gas pressure. You have to have one of these. You can't be a hot side appliance or a furnace repair guy without having a manometer. You got to know what your gas pressure is. You can't go off of intuition or, oh yeah, I've seen the flame, that looks like every other thing I've ever seen, so I'm going to say that's good. Bullshit. Check it. Use your meter. Document what those readings are, because it could be very well that maybe one of the issues you're having is that you're running too rich or you're not getting enough gas. So document it. Cover your butt is another reason why you'll want to use one of these. Almost every single cooking appliance has your gas valve, but then you're also going to have a regulator, because oftentimes in a restaurant, when your pipe comes in from the meters outside, you're going to have a big fat line, and then each of your fryers and hot side appliances are going to be tapped off of that line. And in between the gas line coming in and your manifold, you're going to have a regulator. which all that's going to do is lower your gas pressure to the gas valve. Most gas valves, they're rated to only be able to receive a certain pressure behind it. Most of them, I think, are like 7-8 inches on, a typical gas valve. Well, if your regulator took a dump and all of a sudden your back pressure behind your valve is 15 pounds, well, that's more pressure. And when these gas valves are set at a certain pressure, that higher back pressure is going to push right through it. And you're going to get a hell of a lot more gas coming out of it than 3.5 or 4, whatever you have it set for. So not only do you got to measure your gas pressure between the gas valve and the burner, you also got to measure it between your line and your gas valve. You want to make sure that that pressure is proper. And all that information.
Don't be afraid to check it multiple times, like check it at startup, check it after it's been running for a few minutes. We had a weird call in Freddy's in Boise, I think last winter, where we worked on this fryer several times and couldn't figure it out. And every time we checked the gas pressure of the fryer, it was fine. And then the tech just put it on the fryer and left it on there for a while and just watched it. And out of nowhere, the gas pressure died off. And like Shane said, everything's connected to the main for the building. And it was in the middle of winter time. And it turned out that every time the rooftop called for heat, it stole all the gas and there wasn't enough gas for the fryer. It ended up being a main regulator for the building that was the issue. So don't ever go based off of just, I hooked up, it's at 4 inches of water column or whatever, like everything's good. Watch the gas pressure as it goes through its sequence.
And that's one thing, I'm glad you brought that up. I learned this one over there in Idaho Falls. We did some night work, but essentially we shut all of their Hotside stuff down and cleaned a bunch of them out, fixed them up and whatnot. But when you're checking gas pressure, you want to have all of your appliances running at the same time. Because when you're running all of your gas appliances off that one line, let's say hypothetically there's one gas meter outside and that feeds all of the cooking appliances. Well, in order to get a true reading on how pressurized your line is, your line might be pressurized at 14 inches of water column or 10 inches water column, but then you go to fire on your biggest appliance and all of a sudden, now your inlet pressure just dropped like big time, right? So what you got to do is turn on all of your gas appliances, set all the manifolds, set all of your regulators, and still make sure you've got enough back pressure. You don't want your back pressure in your main line dropping below what the inlet of your gas valve is supposed to be. So in order to really even tell if you're getting enough gas into your home run line, you got to run everything and you got to watch that manifold gas pressure. Because you might be cool if one appliance turns on and then a second one, but when your third one goes on, boom, it knocks everything out because there's not enough gas being supplied to run that many appliances at the same time. Let me see here. Any questions yet?
Hey, Shane.
Yes.
All right. Instead of all your digital stuff, these are pretty cool right here.
I like those and I've used those. The only problem I've had with those is that they don't seem to hold calibration very long and they're very easy to lose. They're so simple to pick them up with your spatula and set them off to the side because it's hot as balls. And I've actually lost like 2 or 3 of those that I quit buying them.
I've never had one go out of calibration, but I have lost a bunch of them.
Yeah, you go back and be like, hey man, Ask the cook, hey, dude, have you seen a thermometer around anywhere? Like, I like those
Well,
too.
being mentioned too, one should have a manometer. You know, I view like our industry, like, yes, we don't do Hotside every day, but we do live in a state where we do a lot of heating equipment, package rooftop units, you know, stuff like that. And it's just as an important tool as your multimeter, as your gauges. And so, like Shane said, it is pretty much a required tool. You just can't do the job without it.
Yeah, and I'm getting ready to up. I'm putting a bunch of pictures on my Teams really quick from a call that I did the other night. That's got some really good stuff here. Um, I did purchase this little tester that seemed like a really good idea for 23 bucks at Johnstone's, but I'm gonna tell you now, don't buy it. It's a piece of crap, and it's a waste of 23 bucks. But this is
Are you
another
talking about that adapter I got picked up for
This
you,
guy-
Shane, when I was up there last?
yes, this guy.
Yeah.
It's an awesome idea, but it's built like shit. That they could have made this way stronger. In fact, on mine, the whole top piece basically caved into itself and it broke. So I got all excited. I'm like, oh man, that's gonna be so much easier, dude. You know, nope. Sorry, piece of crap. All right, can everybody see this griddle?
Yeah.
Okay, so 5 burner griddle. It's a Vulcan, very common griddle. Uh, this thing wouldn't hold any pilots. They just kept dropping out. Jumped ahead of myself, but that was thermal imaging after I fixed it. You don't have to get the Klein thermal imager. There are other ones. I forget the name of the company. It's a weird name, but they pretty much specialize in thermal imaging. But they're rather expensive.
FLIR.
Yeah, they're talking about the
FLIR,
FLIRs.
yeah, FLIR, yep.
I have the
FLIR,
Klein myself, and the Klein works really good. And it's what, $300?
I think I paid $250 somewhere's in that range at RSD.
Yeah, that you're right. Yeah.
Dude, it's weird because it's the little just a little black thing, on a key ring. In fact, I've got mine. I'll show everybody. I hesitated for a long time on buying the little thermal imager because I'm like, dude, when the hell am I going to use this, right? Until I bought it, and then I realized I was using it on a ton of stuff that I didn't even think about using it on. In fact, most of the time, I use my little thermal imager more on electrical systems, walk-in cooler, freezer doors to see if a heater's working or not. I mean, there's a billion uses for it. But it's calibrated pretty dang well. And it's telling me at this specific spot right here, I'm about 368 degrees. And as you can tell by the purple and red and orange, you can actually see a griddle's hot spot. You can quickly identify the temperature and then calibrate the temperature control down below. Because maybe, this area is cool. Mind you, all of these knobs are set at 350. But yet, look at this area over here. I'm almost 400 degrees. So clearly that one is not calibrated, right? I mean, 350 degree set point, yet I'm at 432. Like, dude, that's way too hot. So when cooks are saying, well, yeah, well, it's charring my food, or it's burning my steaks, or it's whatever, it's overcooking the food. It's pretty easy to just pull this little thing out of your bag, plug it into your phone, and then boom, there you go. Well, hey, that's why.
Griddles, Travis taught me a trick when I first started. We were calibrating a grill at Five Guys. I'm sure everyone's seen those calls. They ask us to calibrate their grills fairly regularly, but a lot of time those griddles, there's a valve that you can that's adjusting, for like flow of gas or whatever else. And my initial instinct was to adjust the valve to change the temperature, when the much easier solution was, okay, I'm using my temp probe or whatever, and I can see it's at 350, and simply loosening the set screw on the knob and just adjusting the knob to match that. Then you can easily set them rather than adjusting the actual components on the fryer or the griddle itself.
Yep. In fact, it has to be in this that specifically. Five Guys will call us out and say, hey, can you calibrate my grills? Just like Dustin said, I've probably done it 2 or 3 times alone at the Five Guys in Pokey. I'm trying to see where the temperature knob is. Oh wow, good job. You guys suck. Give me 1 sec. Trying to find one that's actually got the temperature knob or let me see.
Just look back at that Vulcan griddle picture you have.
Yeah, I was gonna try to find a good zoom in picture. Now this one kind of threw me for a whirl. These aren't calibrated the same way. In fact, this one, I don't know that I mean, I tried yanking on this thing and it would not come off. And then I actually picked the little front plate off and there was nothing. But what Dustin's talking about is most hot side appliances, what you do if let's say you set all your burners to 350 and you let it run 15, 20 minutes, you get the griddle nice and hot. Maybe you start to see your burners are cycling on and off. That's when you want to check your temperature. And if you find one where you have a hot spot like this and in the middle, well, that's burner 2 and 3, because my first one's over here and that one, was just warming up. Most of the burners are horseshoe shaped. So they're gonna go all the way to the back, curl around, and then come all the way back to the front. And then that heat's gonna hit that plate and just radiate around. But if you have a hot spot like this and you're like, dude, man, my knobs are at 350, but this is saying 430, you can pop the front, and then inside there is a little screw, and you can pull this knob off, spin it, put it back on, and then tighten it down. And that's more or less how you calibrate those. So like on this, I think it might be the griddle at Five Guys to the left of the fryers. That's exactly how you calibrate those. You have to hold on to the knob, pop that little front off, release the set screw, and then don't take it all the way off unless you have to, because sometimes they can be a pain in the butt to put back in, or there's a little clip on the inside of the knob that you dropped and you didn't realize you dropped it. Then you're screwed. But yeah, you'll look at what's your temperature and what's your current knob set point. Take this off, loosen it, and let's say this is 450, but this is set for 350. Well, you would loosen this or take it off, rotate it until it is at 450, and then screw it back on, and then turn it down to 350. And that's sort of how you get yourself into the ballpark of calibrating a griddle like that. So not bad on this side. We were at like 366. That's still from the middle burner, really hot. And what's ironic is that these guys might have learned or changed their processes, or might have been living with a problem for so long that they didn't realize, dude, your guys' food quality has changed simply because your griddle is running way too hot. If your griddle's running hot, well, you better slow your cook time, lessen your cook time. Otherwise, by the time your meat's been 5-10 minutes, whatever it calls for, well, you're way overcooked. something I like to do while working Hotside is grab a big old chunk of cardboard from the back of the house and use that as like my kneeling pad slash scratch pad. So I've got my tool bag next to me. I've got cardboard down so I don't get oil all over my jeans. And then I've got something that I can write all my notes on so I don't have to continuously stop and pull out my phone or grab a pen and paper. My ass, it's right there. So one of the most important things you can do as a technician when it comes to hot side equipment or whatever you're fixing, regardless of what it is if you're going to change something about the system, record your before and after data. So in this case, I pulled and cleaned every single thermocouple on this griddle. There was 4 of them, no, 5 of them, yeah, but less pilots. So pilot assemblies, we got milliamps, millivolts, and I like to do before and after. So when you're looking at your pilot assembly and you pull it out and it looks freaking nasty, like this guy. I mean, look at that, dude. I mean, that thing doesn't look like it's going to be producing much. What it should look like is that nice and shiny. So as carbon and soot builds up, it's going to definitely inhibit this thermocouple rod's ability to create volt DC. So this right here would be an indication of we keep losing our pilot, or it won't stay lit. The gas valve goes out. Pilot won't stay lit. Pilot won't light. This is that guy that generates that DC voltage. You got your flame coming up from your pilot line. It hits the hood, and that flame is just tagging this thing 24/7. Sometimes you'll see over time, pulling these out and cleaning them constantly. You might bend them a little bit. You might mess them up a little bit. Maybe you clean it and put it back in, and your readings are worse. Like, what the hell? It's supposed to be better. Well, you might have accidentally nudged this over or back and forth, and now it's not sitting in direct flame. So make sure that when you put it back in the system, make sure that that flame is guaranteed going to be hitting that thermocouple. The hood, you don't really got to replace unless you're seeing flame come out of this area. If you're seeing flame spew out of this area, shut it off and change the whole pilot assembly out. Hood and all. This one, even though it looked old, it wasn't leaking anything by, and it was giving me good flame rectification, so I kept it. But normally something like this, man, if I see it looking like that, and I ask the customer, how long ago have you ever had these replaced? Well, it really wouldn't hurt to swap these out. I mean, this part's about $115 on Partstown. Some of our customers have an account with Partstown, or at least some of our old customers did. But pretty cheap parts. We get them in 2 days. Two second day air for ground freight, so we get a hookup on the freight. But some of these things, these are kind of like wear and tear parts. So simple. And when you talk to your customers, I ask them this stuff. Well, if your fryer goes down, how much money are you losing by not having that fryer running, right? They're losing tons of money every minute that fryer is down. So having that conversation with your customer, when you start seeing them look like this and they're just beat to piss and they're old, clean them, test them, but then let your customer know, dude, this thing's pretty old. It wouldn't hurt to just get a new one in there. And it's going to be a lot cheaper if I replace it now than if I replace it when it breaks and I have to replace it. Because then all of a sudden, customers aren't just thinking about how much is this part going to cost me. Now they're going to be thinking about, shit, if I lose this cooking appliance, how much money am I losing in loss of sales? Because I'm a chicken wing store and I make most of my money on beer, fries, and chicken wings. Well, if my fryers are broken, I ain't making any money. So all of a sudden, hey man, $115 gets you a new one of these. Now you're doing your customer a big favor. This right here, I don't know that they call it a volute, but this is your air mixture valve. It's got a little Phillips screw right there, and you can actually rotate this silver cylinder. This piece right here, downstream from it, that doesn't move. And don't touch it because it's wicked hot. And if you're going to touch this, put on an oven mitt. But loosen the screw and you can choke it off and not give it combustion air, or you can open it up and give it more air. And you can usually tell what's the right amount just by looking at the flame. Natural gas flame color, you should be burning blue. With orange tipping is okay.
Hey, Shane, I got a question for you. Do you regularly carry an oven mitt in your tool bag?
No. I mean, you could
Looking like
if
Betty
you
Crocker
want
in there.
to, but I usually just grab one. I mean, unless it's super cool. Like, I don't know. I've got some cool oven mitts that I picked out for myself at home just because I got big freaking hands and I can't, got to use a big oven mitt. But yeah, I mean, it honestly wouldn't hurt, dude. I mean, hey, if it makes your job easier and safer and you're not going to hurt yourself, then by all means, if somebody laughs or asks, say, hey, screw you, I'm protecting my hand. So this is the meter that I use when it comes to testing this guy right here. You're going to be checking volts DC, millivolts, milliamps. So my meter, UADC. Does anybody know what UADC is? Somebody's got to know. Any guesses? No? Milliamps.
Like micro or like something amps DC. Well, that would be what it is.
Milliamps. Yep.
Okay. I was kind of.
So, and there actually is a difference between micro and milli. It's worth a Google. But yeah, UADC. You have to have that meter function in order to read milliamps. I'm trying to think of a scenario outside of a thermocouple that you would need milliamps. But I can't really think of one off the top of my head. So milliamps and then volts DC, you're going to want to check volts DC, but then also make sure that your meter is ranged. So right here, I've got a range to the 10th so that it tells me on the left side of the decimal the whole number. So right here, that is in fact 15.2 millivolts. So I've got my volts on VDC, and you'll want to hit your button and select millivolts. And I've always used Field Piece. I used one time in my career did I actually try a different voltmeter, and no shit, I bought the Klein voltmeter from Home Depot thinking it was going to be sick because it was all black and orange and looked sweet. No joke. The screen went black the day I bought it because I left it strapped to the side of an AC in Phoenix when it was 122 outside, and it didn't take long before it just cooked that meter. Field piece are pretty rugged. I've broken a few, but mostly out of stupidity, like leaving them out in the rain or dropping them from really high up. Otherwise, it's a pretty damn durable meter and it does a lot. You know, this meter does hertz, it does volts DC, millivolts, milliamps, it does volts AC, you know, excuse me, it's got a built on amp clamp. It does continuity, resistance, diodes. You can check diodes, MFD for capacitors. NCV is your non-contact voltage. So if you just want to buzz something out really quick at the tip of your amp clamp, and then it's got Fahrenheit and centigrade temperature for the K-type. So this meter is wicked awesome. It's also got inrush amps and it's got a hold function. So if you want to hold it and then take a picture of your reading, then you can release the hold and so on and so forth. So this is another meter that has to have these functions. And back in the day, before field piece got cool and put the milliamps function on the smaller meters, the subcompact meters, they didn't have that function on the smaller meters. So I had to go out and buy this big, long, dorky, big freaking meter just for one function. And that was some bull crap. So they did put this feature into the subcompact meters. So this is the look-see on your typical gas griddle. This is that Vulcan from Steak Place. Vulcan does a lot of griddles. There's a lot of other ones out there, but most of the time our customers, they're getting their equipment from places like BSR. Our place up here is Spokane Kitchen Equipment or Restaurant Equipment, which is basically BSR just with a different name. And they pretty much buy all the same crap. So it don't really matter if you're going to a fast food or a fastest, you know, a quick serve restaurant, chances are they're going to have a lot of the same equipment, the Pitco, the Vulcan, you know, what's that other fancy fryer? I hate them so much. I haven't bothered to remember their name. But it's got like the name of a girl or something. What are those other fryers?
Henny Penny.
Henny Penny. Yeah, dude. I hate those, dude.
Chick-fil-A has those.
Yeah, those are more advanced, more electronics and stuff like that. And those, you just got to read the manual or watch YouTube videos on how they work. They got a lot more bells and whistles. The reason why I like Pitco and Vulcan is they're bare bones minimalists. I mean, they go out of their way to put the least amount of stuff in their equipment. And sometimes less is more, man. It really is. So I got my knob popped off of this burner and I've got my knob on that one. Like I said, depending on the manufacturer, how you adjust your temperature of your burner is you would pop this front cap and then remove or pull out gently this guy right here. The thing about the ones at Five Guys is if you take this off, there's actually a spring that is loaded on the backside of that, and that thing will pop out and bye-bye, it's gone. Now you're screwed. So you'll want to be very careful and take these apart slowly because every manufacturer is different. And in some cases, they might not do something crazy like that on half of their models, but then the other half of the models they do. So each time you're going to mess with something like this or take something apart, do it carefully. Make sure you don't drop any pieces. Some of them have little teeny tiny clips that have to go inside there. And if you lose it, you're done. You're not going to be able to, you just broke the knob, you know? So if I got a call that the fryer or the griddle or the oven or anything that is gas fired and has a gas valve and a thermocouple, if they say it's not working, then usually the first thing I'm looking at besides power? Is it plugged in? Is the gas valve open? Did somebody shut the gas off to the appliance, or is it open? First thing I'm going to do is start at one burner and progress your way forward. The most common problem, like I said, is this guy right here. These do just get dirty over time. They have to be cleaned. Exactly the same thing as a flame sensor in any gas furnace. If you have a gas furnace that lights and immediately shuts off, or lights and runs for a couple minutes but then shuts off, clean the flame sensor. It's something that is just good maintenance to have done at least once a year. In fact, I was talking with Nathan about it today. All of our Hotside customers, in my opinion, we should be offering them as a part of a maintenance to go around and clean out their Hotside appliances, blow out the burners, make sure there's no soot or debris near the flames. A lot of times food can get dropped and sticks to the burners and stuff like that, cakes on there. This has to get cleaned, I would say, at least once a year. And if you do those things, then we're going to be kind of cutting back on service calls probably, but we're also getting that money and hours from doing the maintenance too. And then the maintenance is a good opportunity to say, hey, yo, look at this. This thing's looking pretty beat up. Like, what do you think about just swapping them all out? I think it's time. And then it's a good opportunity to, upgrade some of these things to keep your customer going. So that way we prevent a breakdown. That's what a preventative maintenance is for.
Just out of curiosity, what are some of the issues everyone else has encountered, or common issues you've seen with different Hotside equipment, or maybe things that kind of stumped you, or something interesting you found? Like, what did everyone else experience?
This wasn't at a Five Guys. It was at a Buffalo Wild Wings, and they use Pitcos, but they use the Solstice Supremes, and their solid state controls are a little different than the ones at Five Guys. The one at Five Guys has an auto and a manual mode, or the ones that on the Solstice Supremes have at like a Chili's maybe, or a Buffalo Wild Wings has a manual and an auto mode, whereas the ones at Five Guys do not. And if you have it swapped to manual, it will not allow the solid state control to automatically determine like temperature, things like that. They have to set it all manually. And so I had it to where the computer interface on the screen just would not do anything. And I was on the phone with, funny enough, with Shane for a while, like probably a good 45 minutes, until finally he was like, yeah, you might want to call Pitco. Because we were jumping things out and getting it to work, but we just didn't feel comfortable leaving a jumper on it. And the Pitco guy told me, yeah, you're going to want to turn that to automatic. And I did, and it finally kicked on. So it was kind of a weird one. It wasn't really a hard one per se, but definitely knowing the sequence of operations and knowing like what every component does on your thing by reading the manual is definitely a good thing. I jumped the gun and just wanted like, oh yeah, Shane, help me out, blah, blah, blah. But, definitely looking at the literature yourself and can definitely help a huge ton.
It can. I mean, because like you said, sequence of operations, that is dire. I mean, that's why these machines have all these little safeties and stuff like that, is because it's to prevent something bad from happening, right? Like if you have to jump across something, or change something about the equipment to get it to work, then something ain't right. Something's not good. Here you go. Trying to find a picture. I'll find one in a second. All right, somebody take up another 2 minutes of time. Here we
I'll
go.
jump in there. I've had a lot with Five Guys, their temperature probes going out, though. That's actually why I was looking at that Cooper Atkins, because I didn't realize the field piece K type is only rated for up to, like, I think it's only 260 or 280. I think on Amazon, that's what it says with those field piece ones in the literature for it. So
Yeah.
I had just been dunking that thing in oil, like when my high limits trip, like, oh, I wonder if my high limits tripped. Oh, yep, it tripped. It's like 425. Like it reads, but it's a good thing you told me that, because I'm sure it's probably breaking down that little thermistor or that thermocouple down like nobody's business. So, but ohming out those temperature sensors is huge, because I mean they're only off like maybe like 1,000 ohms. It'll be off by like a good 150 to 200 degrees. I have one at Five Guys on order right now. That was at tripping the high limit, and at the high limit at 400, it's only supposed to be like sub 500 ohms, and it was at like 2,500, which was registering like 270 degrees. So those temperature probes definitely go bad more often than they don't, or that seems to be my biggest call to the Five Guys fryers anyway.
And I've seen on the fryers too, like the exhaust in the back gets all greased and plugged up too, and you can't get rid of some of the heat, and so they'll overheat that way too. And if anyone's ever worked on, what are the weird ones at Freddy's, turbo fryer or something like that? Those ones are weird.
Oh,
They've
yeah,
got
that's like the turbo air version of a fryer.
yeah, they've got like a burner chamber, and it's like a big cylinder, and inside of those are like these metal baffles that kind of distribute the heat evenly and kind of make it go in a certain pattern to create like an even heat pattern. And we had one in Boise where we just kept looking at over and over and over again. And it literally took looking at the manual of all things, more than tech support, more than just, doing this and doing that, but looking at the manual. And like they're the only ones I've ever seen that have a metal baffle shoved inside of a burner chamber to distribute the heat. And the baffles had actually gotten just so hot over time, they had crumbled. And so the heat was all kind of just going all wherever which direction and not heating evenly. And to see like the instructions on how to like pull the burner chamber apart and have to like scoop the remains of the clumped up, broken up baffles out and replace baffles, like I would have had no idea. So I know we do work at Freddy's too. So in there, those turbo fryers are something different, like way different than the Pitco. So just keep that in mind too. But a lot of times that exhaust will get plugged up if they're always dirty. Everyone says they clean their fryers and they clean behind them, and we all know they don't. And so, make sure you check the exhaust too and clean out any debris. Sometimes food falls back behind there, and if it can't exhaust properly, it's just going to build up heat a lot quicker and trip that high limit.
The noodle
That's-
cookers have those too.
Yeah. And those baffles, I mean, I'm pretty sure it has something to do with just the possibly creating like a Venturi effect. So that way it kind of vortexes it to keep flow. Because unless you have power exhaust, you pretty much the force of the flame is what is pushing the exhaust up and out. But Goodman furnaces, residential gas furnaces, back in like 2011 or 2010, they did the same thing. They put those stupid things down the burn. Dude, we pulled those out because they were just creating more problems than helping. Jeremy, that's so. In case you guys didn't notice that, it took me a matter of, I think, like a minute to find the literature, the service facts guide to that one fryer in particular, just by using PartsTown. Like I said, dude, you want to find a manual, dude? Go here first. And on a side note, if there are other things too, when it comes to Manitowoc, I've found some really cool stuff that I can get out to you guys. But I'm telling you, man, you learn so much about how this equipment works just by reading the manual. In fact, I wanted to scroll back down here because you'll get the information here too. It even tells you a breakdown of the, information. What kind is it? What do these numbers mean? All that stuff. So, does this look familiar, Jeremy, with this green and blue buttons and stuff?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah. So, right here, I mean, it tells you step by step how to access it for servicing. Turn it off, unplug it, shut the, temperature controller off, blah, blah, blah. Well, most of the time, we're not going to be doing this stuff when we're working on it. We need the gas and the power to see what the problem is. Tells you where to hook up to check out your in. I mean, has anybody not ever checked gas pressure on a gas valve on a manifold? And it's okay to say yes. So everybody's checked gas pressure. Sweet. So then you know that the side coming from the main feeder, that's your inlet. The other side, the opposite side that is connected towards your burner or burner, distribution bar, that's your outlet or your manifold pressure. So when they say, 4 inches water column, what they mean is burner. So take the little cap off, flathead screwdriver, and you can actually push the spring down. There's a diaphragm in there and it opens the valve more. So if you go counterclockwise, you're choking gas. If you go clockwise, you're giving it more. Or vice versa. It tells you the size of the hex nut too, or 7/16. So if you don't have one of these little pieces to hook into a gas valve, well, there's your sizes right there. Or you can just call John Stone's any parts house, say, hey, I need the piece that screws into a gas valve to check pressure, and they'll hook you up. Should only be a couple dollars. Don't lose this little nut. I've lost them before, and literally like nobody sells just that nut. At least they didn't as of 4 years ago. So save that little guy. Supply pressure table. Now this is your gas to your valve. So on the meter side, this is the pressure that is going to the inlet of your valve. And like I said, these are rated 7 to 9 on natural, 11 to 13 on LP. If your natural gas and your supply pressure to your manifold over here is 15 because you have a failed regulator, this thing is going to be shooting out flames like freaking crazy. Even if you have it set to 4 inches water column, because the back pressure is so high, it's going to force that pressure through. And now you're going to be burning at like 8 inches water column. Gas station out in Blackfoot, I don't remember, it's that chicken place, that little fast food place. That's exactly what happened with their Henny Penny, that their gas regulator had failed, and there was so much freaking pressure behind the valve, it was shooting out giant ass flames, but it was at 8 inches water column instead of 4. So big problem there. So sometimes the problem ain't even with the fryer or the cooking appliance. Sometimes the problem is just the pressure to your appliance is too low or too high. Solid state thermostat on your Pitco fryer, that's the same, pretty much almost universal. But yeah, this little guy right here tells the vat what temperature do you want it. These things fail, just like anything else, but you're going to want to verify when checking, through the electronics and stuff, is this part really bad or is it something else? So tech support, in lieu of calling them to help you figure out what the problem is, once I realized tech support's far more valuable at confirming what my suspicions are, then everybody's happier. especially the tech support guys, because they don't got to sit there and try to figure out a problem. So if you think something is wrong, go ahead and call tech support and confirm it. Say, hey, I think I got a bad solid state. This is what's happening. This is what it's doing. Let them confirm it. You know, sometimes if you're unsure of your findings, that's the best thing to do is call tech support, tell them what you think it is, why, and they'll help you out.
Definitely confirm the solid state that it's bad first, because I jumped the gun when I was first kind of dabbling a little bit more in Hotside, and condemned a solid state at Five Guys in Pocatello and pissed Jeff off because it wound up being just the $150 probe rather than the $1,000 solid state control. And yeah, we had to kind of eat that.
Well, and that's another thing that, you know, unless you absolutely know for certain, like, hey, the solid state has a big old freaking hole in the middle of it because someone got pissed and smashed it with a screwdriver, right? Like, on high dollar repairs like that, man, I urge you to call tech support and confirm your findings. If you're ever in question, call the manufacturer, talk to their tech support people, and that's an easy sell to the customer. Hey, I think this is the problem, but because it's such a unique issue or because the part is so expensive, I want tech support to confirm my findings. If I was a customer, I would be like, yeah, please do, bro, because I don't want to pay for a $2,000 board if it's this down the road, you know. So definitely, if you're in question, in doubt, call tech support. And if they can't tell you, then shit, that sucks. But here's a close up of how to adjust your manifold pressure. You'll see a screw. Take that off, little flathead, and then it'll expose a little plug here. So beneath this plug is a spring, and then beneath that is the top of the valve. Like, so when you screw this down, it pushes force on the spring, which pushes force on the diaphragm to open that valve. But you're also going to want to hook up with a manometer before you even touch this screw, because you got to know before you make a change, record your data, then make your change, then record your data, so you can show the before and after. This one right here, you can adjust your pilot pressure, and same on the other ones too. You don't want your pilot to be underfed or overfed. You know, that's going to be a problem. These things require a very, you know, pretty much dead on. Hey, we're saying run that pilot flame at 1/2-inch water column. Well, then you better run it at 1/2-inch water column, or you can expect problems down the road. Yeah, here you go. Ignition module on Pitcos is usually in this location here, or, you know, I've seen them zip tied and hanging to weird stuff. Some numbnuts up here actually thought it would be a good idea to take this this ignition module, which is made out of plastic, and screwed it to the plate that was right in front of the heat exchanger. So where he mounted it was super hot and it melted the board. Like, duh. So you don't want to do anything like that. You know, be cognizant of where you install this and where you put it. Has anybody had to do anything like crazy with a Hotside appliance?
I've seen a fryer flue get completely filled to where you had to sit there with picks and stuff and chisel it out because it was so full after years of them using it. With the ones with the automatic baskets, when those automatic baskets break, they just hang them from the flue and it just fills the flue up. But sometimes they get plugged so bad that it's best just to take them off the job, because you're sitting there for hours just picking at super tough grease. And the one that was the worst, it blocked the airflow completely, but it was so bad and so packed that we actually had to light the fryer on fire just to soften it all so we could get it out.
Yeah, grease buildup. Definitely going to want to think about that. Other sort of appliances. You just got to think of how do gas appliances work, right? And I know I don't want to run too late, but I want to hop over to gas packs really quick. But here's your pilot assembly. It's going to have your electrode. When powered, it creates that spark. One thing you'll want to check on these is, let's say you have one that, and specifically an electrode. Some appliances out there, and I think there was one at Shaka's in Idaho Falls. They have a oven in the back room, and their pilot assembly is an electrode like this, but then they also have their thermal couple like right next to it, and then their igniter. And it's like, dude, they made all three parts look the freaking same. And you're like, which one's the igniter and which one's the thermal couple? So if you're ever in that situation, man, it's not a bad idea to mark on Sharpie with, the little boot right here. Do like a 1/ or a 2, and then mark a slash, identical slash on the part that you took it off of. Because if you get into a situation where you're like, what the hell, dude? Like, I hooked it back up and now nothing's working, you might have shot yourself in the toe. And that actually happened to us. And dude, it took me forever to figure out what the heck, like, it was staring at me right in the face, so you want to make sure that, you put these back on the same place you take them off. But this guy right here, this whole entire thing is insulated because you've got open metal, lots of metal, and then you've got electricity. Well, electricity likes to arc. So be careful when this is lighting. I usually don't like to hold on to the unit or touch the unit or ground myself to it while it's sparking, just in case it arcs to the case and then I just lit myself up. But this piece right here, you do want to make sure it goes all the way back and it should snap in. I have not seen one that was in proper working order that did not actually snap in, or you can feel it engage. But that's a part that can wear out. It can get loose. It can get burnt up. It can, just like giving off the same symptoms as any other form of loose electrical connection. So it's not a bad idea. Just like if you're looking under the hood of your car, make sure your, spark plug cables are all pushed down. We'll do the same thing here. Just, give it a good nudge in, make sure it's nice and tight, maybe wiggle it around a little bit, make sure it's not loose. Look down inside this little boot and you'll see that little, kind of like catcher's mitt that snaps into here, the end of the electrode, make sure it looks good. But then your thermal couple is also attached to this pilot assembly. And I hate to say it, but these Pitcos, they're a pain in the nuts, dude. Like, get ready to get your knuckles cut up because that's just what's going to happen with these real knuckle busters. But your thermal couple is in there, and that's going to usually have either a wire with a spade connected to it, or it's going to be that copper that we saw earlier. So you'll want to just pull this whole thing out to even see your thermal couple just to clean it. There you go, right there. That's your pilot assembly with the tubing connected. And everything you need is right there. So these are just like common things. I mean, when you get into a situation to where something isn't working, order of operations. So all gas appliances, they all have an order of operations because of the safety features. what this thing is doing, or like the furnace control board is doing, which is out of this picture, but it's going, okay, we got a call for heat. We've got voltage down our W circuit. Can anybody tell me what the sequence of operations is on just a standard gas furnace, just a bare bones plain gas furnace? Oh, don't make me call on somebody. Let's see.
All right, I'll start you out. First inducer. Then when your inducer activates, goes through your inducer pressure, and then igniter, gas valve, and then flame sensor.
There you go. So all gas-fired appliances have a particular sequence of operation to just ensure that everything is safe before we allow fire to take place, right? Your typical gas pack, even, or gas furnace, or anything that's heating air, you're going to have your flame sensor, which is sitting in the burner. Most gas packs that we see, we're not going to have hot surface ignition, the glow stick, but we're going to have an electrode pumping voltage, and it's got a connecting rod that it arcs. And you'll see like Carrier weather makers are the most common freaking gas pack out there. The electrode is on one end of the burner, and then the flame sensor is on the other end of the burner, as to not confuse the two. But again, flame sensor, flame rectification, the same volts DC that we were doing over here. Where was it? Oh, I forgot the picture. Where's it at? Too many tabs. Anyway,
I know
so
on
yeah,
that picture showed that had like the little like cap tube looking, like the
oh
tube.
yeah, I know where it's at. Shit, sorry.
No, I personally have seen those like crack, and I also know when you're taking those out, they're also like fairly frail after being in all the heat. So just be like careful, and they're not always easy to find like cracks, but I have seen several of those little aluminum tubes or whatever actually crack and cause issues. Same with like the griddles,
ceramic.
they have a lot of blown fuse issues. And like that whole front panel of those griddles is nothing but wires, and you can pull things too far when trying to take the cover off, or they're exposed to heat. I know Travis has had to rewire several of them. And then I was just going to ask Travis if he had any words of wisdom to add to the group.
No, I think Shane's been covering a very thorough training. I've been very impressed hearing it all.
Right on. We're almost done. Now that we're on the topic of actually like diagnosing stuff, the most common kind of failure in any heating appliance is the thermocouple, because nobody thinks about cleaning it. Nobody thinks about maintaining it. But honestly, dudes, if you're working on a Hotside appliance and you've got the NTE to cover it, man, even if that's not part of the problem, pull the pilot assembly out and clean the thermocouple. But before and after test, before you make a change, record your data. So do a before and after on the thermocouple, and then after you clean it, record it. And then, hey, that's another thing you can tell your customer. Oh, by the way, yeah, while I was here, I pulled the thing out, cleaned it. Now you're reading better. It'll last longer. But this is that little turd tool I was talking about from Johnstone's. That sucks. What this was trying to accomplish is testing your millivolts on your thermocouple with only 2 hands, because when you only have 2 hands, it's kind of hard to hold your probe on the tip of this, which there's another picture here somewheres of that, and shove a probe up inside this cylinder and push this button in and stick a freaking lighter up in there to light the pilot. You just can't do it. You don't have enough hands. So this little guy was designed to, oh, go ahead and plug it in. Now you've got one finger up here, one hand down here, light it, and don't worry, we got you. We've got it connected so your flame will not drop out. But on this style, this is the same style that you'll see on pretty much all gas water heaters, is this little copper dude right here. I think it's a 10K ohm thermocouple. And in fact, one of my guys purchased one of these from Home Depot. So in lieu of replacing the $115 hour cost pilot assembly, you can probably get away with just swapping out just this copper piece, the piece that was dirty and then I cleaned in the other picture. So what you would do here is black here, your black probe, volts DC or milliamps, but you're going to hook up your black lead to this piece right here. And then your other lead is going to go up inside there and hit where this contacts. But because I have this nifty tool, all you have to do is alligator clip here and then put your red lead on this little teeny tiny screw right there. So, and this worked. I probably got a little overzealous and broke it. But this thing was really sweet. So you undo your line, screw this in, plug that back in. Awesome. Now all you got to do is alligator clip there, test there, and boom, you got your volts. The same thing applies here. So that flame sensor is the same thing. You can call it an electrode, or, you know, no, an electrode creates spark, but that's your flame sensor. That's your thermal couple or your thermal pile. How you would test it in this scenario is take the wire off, put your black lead through there and let it just bite it, you know, hold it into itself. Take your red lead and hold it onto the tip or the male spade. And then when it goes to fire, not only have you completed the circuit, but it'll keep running, and then you can read your millivolts or milliamps. And even this flame sensor inside this train 90% gas furnace in someone's house, even this thing has a very specific detail. It's going to create so many milliamps and millivolts at brand new clean. The gas valve also, the board will tell you, hey, if this thing's supposed to be giving me 20 millivolts, well, until I see 20 millivolts, I'm shutting down, and then I'll refire. And if I still don't see it, well, guess what? I'm shutting down again. So a lot of the times, if you have a system that's just won't even turn on and run, chances are you could be either extremely low, where you can't control the pilot, like a gas pack or a gas furnace or something, or these things are coated in ceramic. That's because they have high voltage, and they coat them in ceramic so that way it doesn't arc to the case that it's sitting in. Because if you have one that's arcing, that will immediately kill the circuit. Because that's telling the board, hey, we got a problem, shut off, no more flame. Trying to find a good picture of one here. Boom, right there. So you might have a gas pack. I think, yeah, like Lennox. They have the little orange piece. but I believe Lennox gas packs, they have this type of flame sensor. And as you can notice, it's way tiny. In fact, there's the end of it, soldered to the piece right there. Very small. This thing produces a very particular voltage back to the control board. Until we hit that voltage, or if we don't hit that voltage, it's shutting everything off. If you do hit the proper voltage, then your flame should stay on and your gas burners will be a go, because you've proven flame. Hey, guess what? We got flame. Go ahead. Let's roll. This thing will make your system work, or it won't let your system work. And it's the most common thing. Pull this out. Don't clean it with sandpaper. You'll ruin it. The finish on there, you don't really want to gouge it and dig it out. Some technicians from past have said, oh, use a dollar bill. No, it's not, dude. Dollar bills don't clean crap. And then not only does it not clean because it's not abrasive at all, you also get ink on here, and you don't want any foreign material on this. Get you the Brillo pad, the square. It's either green or it's maroon. You get it from RSD. I use that shit to clean. I put that on everything, man. That's like my Frank's Red Hot. Dude, I clean my copper with it. Clean flame sensors with it, because it's abrasive enough that it will pull the crap off the rod, but it won't destroy the rod. So use a little Brillo pad and clean it nice and clean until it looks shiny new, and then test it and make sure it's working properly. But back to what Josh said. So what's going to happen is we're going to get our call for heat. Doesn't matter if it's grandma's furnace or a gas pack. We're getting a call for heat. Some furnaces have an inducer motor. Some furnaces don't. Some of them are just natural draft. And when you have natural draft, you're pretty much like just a gas valve and a thermostat, and that's it. Like, there's no flame rectification. Your system is acting basically like a barbecue grill. And believe it or not, yes, the Denny's in Coeur d'Alene, that's their makeup air unit, is like a big barbecue grill in their ductwork. It just turns on. There's a flow switch, a sail switch to make sure the blower is going. But that's about it. You got a sail switch, the little board and gas valve. But because this is in someone's house and not on a rooftop, get a call. The first thing that's going to happen is your inducer motor is going to kick on, and it's going to pull a draft from the front of your burners through the heat exchanger, out the tailpipe, out the side of the unit. What that does is that basically proves that you do not have a cracked heat exchanger. If you have a cracked heat exchanger, you're not going to be able to pull the vacuum required by the unit via pressure switch. And if you can't achieve that vacuum, well, then the system assumes there's something major league wrong. You probably got a cracked heat exchanger, so no way in hell do we want to fire off and dump a bunch of carbon monoxide on top of people's heads. So inducer goes, pressure switch makes. And we've seen those in captive air units. You've seen them in, tons of different kinds of gas packs. You're good. Once that switch makes, the board goes, okay, we sent voltage through that circuit. We got it back. Go ahead for, in this instance, it's all timed. So once it runs through all its safety checks, it's going through your rollouts. We had one recently, a gas pack, that it would kick on, but then like immediately shut off, or it would kick on and run, and then within a few minutes later, it would shut off. And every single time we looked at it, this rollout was popped. So it sensed flame or heat in an area that should not have been that hot and said, hey, we're that hot, shut down. And it killed everything. Immediately shuts the gas off, shuts everything off. So you've on this unit, you've got a rollout and then high limit. You can't see it, but it's actually bugged up behind the gas valve. But you will see those in the Airstream, usually right near the heat exchanger. If you lose your blower motor, well, you don't want to keep your burners going because you're going to overheat and freaking melt your heat exchanger. So normally they're rated like 250 degrees, 275 degrees. So you do have a sensor in there by the heat exchanger or by the blower. We're doing York package units, gas packs up in Bonner's Ferry. Those are York, so they got their pressure switches, but they put their high limit switch right beside the blower after the heat exchanger, right down in the Airstream. So it's close enough to the burner that it's not going to naturally overheat and shut off. What it's going to do is it wants it close enough that if we lose blower, it's going to overheat very fast and it's going to shut down. So once it goes through all your safeties, your rollouts, your high limits, stuff like that, your flame, shit. From here, it's all timed. Most of the stuff that we see is not going to be any sort of timing sequence, but just in case we run into this, it's going to pull induction, close the pressure switch, and then everything is timed and it's going to count. And then your glow stick, your igniter is going to start to go. Most of the time, those need about anywhere from 8 to 12 seconds to get to ignition temperature, meaning that by the time the gas valve opens and starts dumping gas in here, that hot surface igniter is going to be hot enough to immediately combust that gas, and then you're running, you're good. A failed igniter or a weak electrode or a gas appliance where it's failing to ignite, usually the lockout is 3 times. If we have a failed ignition 3 times in a row, now it's going into a hard lockout, and until you reset power, it will not run, because you don't want this whole area filling up with gas and then whoopsie, all of a sudden 15 tries later it decides to ignite. You just created a bomb. Has anybody lit a gas grill with the lid down? I have. Dude, it freaking went kaboom and blew the lid back, nearly broke the damn thing. That was because my cavity where I'm going to ignite was full of freaking gas. But that's another reason why we have this inducer motor, is because it is drawing that gas through the burner and out the smokestack. That's why we have these safeties and why you never want to bypass any of these. You don't want to bypass a pressure switch on a gas pack because you might just create a bomb. You don't want to do that. So once you're up and running and you're burning, you're rectifying flame off your thermocouple, and it's going back to your board and it's saying, here's the volts that I'm reporting. And then that will right then and there tell the board either run or kill everything. If you've got proper millivolts, then you're going to continue to run and you're good. You've completed all of your safety checks. Last but not least, your blower kicks on and then you're off and running. These are all wired in series, or they report back to a specific spot on the board. But they make it so that if any one of these things fails, it kills the system. And that's the same for pretty much any hot side appliance. Here's a picture of me trying to be cool and testing it with no hands just so I can take a picture. But I mean, that's basically it, man. It's kind of tried to quasi do hot side with air, heating. We've got heating coming up. It's getting cold. It's snowing where we're at. But essentially, when it comes to hot side, when you're working on hot side, there's going to be times where the customer's like, no, dude, I need this up and running like pronto. And you're going to have to work in an environment where people are busy. It's loud. It's hard to concentrate. It's hard to make a phone call. You might get oil splashed on you. You might get, stepped on, whatever. It's part of the job and it sucks. But if you're, I would say in a situation where it's not safe for you to actually work on the hot side appliance during their lunch rush or their dinner rush or something like that, I've asked customers, hey man, do you want me to come back, after your lunch rush, or do you want me to come back at like 2 or 3, in between your lunch and dinner rush, or would you prefer it if I come back in the morning, before you guys open? And, it doesn't hurt to let them decide, but ultimately you're the technician there, and you're basically the safety ambassador. You don't want to do something that might be unsafe. Just recently, we had no idea because we haven't done the hot side yet for Chili's. Nobody smelt it. No, nobody, nothing. I get a call at like 9 o'clock at night from the GM. The freaking gas griddle blue hose in the back, the flexible quick connect hose. Well, it broke off, and that whole wall was a giant fireball. And the GM said, luckily, the guy that he had working that night, he was he had fixed this stuff before, and he knew immediately which gas shut off to shut off. And luckily, it didn't even set off the fire system. Coincident, ironically, like there's a big ass fireball, and it didn't set off their Ansel system. So when you're working on hot side and you're in a kitchen, I mean, dude, look for problems. It's better to look for problems and not find any than not look for problems and ending up finding one. You don't want to be that dude that, whatever, you're working on something and then something bad happens. So take your time, double check that when you take your manometer off, when you're checking gas pressure, make sure you put the little tap back in there and it's not leaking gas. Make sure that the electrical looks and appears to be safe. I don't know how many times I've gone to Freddy's in Pocatello, and their cords are just all smashed up because they roll over them and stuff with their cart. Like, dude, prevent a problem. There's no shame in going to your customer with a problem and saying, hey, look, dude, I know you didn't call me out here for this, but I saw this and I felt like I needed to bring it to your attention. Nobody's ever going to get mad at you for that. In fact, that's, in my opinion, being diligent and going above and beyond for your customer. They're going to appreciate that stuff. And more than likely, they're going to call their boss and say, yeah, dude, we need to do this. Look what dude found. So take pictures of stuff. Record your before and after data. Work safe, work smart. Don't do anything that, you don't feel comfortable doing. Call your service manager or talk to the customer. Sometimes going in before the restaurant opens is a much better time because you got to pull the fryer out and you got to get behind it. You probably don't want to do that during lunch or dinner rush. But that's about it, man. Just be safe. And if you have any questions, I love hot side. I don't find it very difficult. They pretty much all work the same, So I feel like if you get good at one of them, you're going to get good at all of them. back to one last thing I wanted to talk about with gas fryers, oil fryers, is the flash point. So you most definitely want to take temperatures of the vats. You know, that's just something good to do every time you're at a restaurant. Walk in there with your super duper dude right here, and just take a quick shot of the oil in the vat. Make sure it's not like something crazy like 400 degrees or something. Um, Oil flashes, I think it's at like 500 degrees, 450, 500 degrees. That's when all of a sudden your oil becomes a big fireball. And it sucks, it's sad, it's part of the industry. That's why even if you see a dirty, filthy, nasty, oily, greasy area, some dude, tell the customer like, yo, dude, you guys got to clean this, man, this is not safe. um I don't know exactly how it happened, but basically one of the longest lasting, longest standing, amazing freaking steakhouses up here just outside Coeur d'Alene is called the Wolf's Lodge. They went from, hey, we're doing a benefit, we're cooking good food 1 second, to the next second, holy shit, the entire kitchen just flash fire, grease fire. And by the time it spread, and it goes fast, the whole lid was on fire within a minute or two. So if you can have uncontrollable grease fires, so report that to the people too. If you see lots of grease all over the walls or all over the equipment or all over the floor or inside of the unit on the burners and stuff, man, report it, clean it. You know, it would be really nice to be able to prevent, me and everybody up here wishes the Wolf Lodge was still standing because it's such an amazing place. It's gone now. And in my opinion, from a freaking lack of cleaning, man. If the kitchen perhaps wasn't filled with so much grease all over it, maybe, who knows, maybe they would have been able to control the fire, but now the whole entire place is gone, you know. So
What place is that, Shane?
what's that?
What place? What building was that?
Wolf's Lodge. Hands down, the best freaking steak. It was an amazing, one of a kind type of place. They have pictures of everybody that's ever gone there. You sign their guest book. They freaking have, moose and deer and elk heads and all different kinds of pelts and shit all over the wall. Just an amazing. It's one of those places that's like, hey, dude, if you're in North Idaho, you better go get a steak there, And it sucks, dude, because now it's gone. Fire in the kitchen. So just be careful working on hot side appliances. One time, I will tell you this, I'll admit this. I was working on a gas furnace in some lady's attic, and I was checking manifold pressure, and the gas pressure checked out good. Well, I went downstairs, turned it back on, and I realized I had left the door switch taped. And that son of a bitch lit again, except I didn't put the little corkscrew back in the weep hole, and the freaking electrical inside the furnace, I developed a pretty large flame, and I shit my pants, dude. So be very careful working hot side, because it is very easy to make one little mistake can turn into the restaurant is now burnt to rubble. So check your gas flexes, check for smell. Actually, Dustin and Travis, I think they just got us all those little meters that sniff natural gas and other gases and stuff. It's not a bad idea that if you're doing hot side, um, that, hey, turn that thing on, put it on your keychain or whatever, and just while you're at the restaurant or while you're working, have that meter on and sniffing. Who knows, maybe it'll pick up a gas leak and you'll see that it's odd. You never know. um but yeah, that's about it.
Any questions or anything? Shane, did you go over pilot safeties at all I saw the picture on there.
Pilot safety. Let me see. Son of a bitch! I got too many windows.
There's also kind of a thing you can do with pilot safeties that saves a lot of time.
Oh, here we go. Oh, wait. I know where it's at.
Enlighten us, Dalen.
So
whenever you freaking brought it up, now you get to talk about it.
Whenever he pulls up the photo, for anyone who doesn't know, the pilot safety on like that flat, yeah, right there with the red button, that's a pilot safety. So a lot of the times, depending on the manufacturer, they're in really, really tight spots, and sometimes past techs will bend metal or some way or another you're not able to get to all the connections for your gas, your inlet and outlet. So what I was taught is you don't actually have to take that whole body out. All you can do is you take those 4 Phillips screws out, and that head will pop out. There's a little spring, and I'm not sure what it's called, but there's another part in there. You can pop that head out. Yes. You can pop that head out, pop a new one in, and it should be good to go because everything else behind that is just the body. So sometimes the spring or dial or it gets sticky in there, for whatever reason, but that's kind of a little trick that I was taught. Instead of having to replace the whole body, just replace the head of it, because sometimes it's a real pain to get to the body.
Seriously, how much of a pain in the nuts was it to do those burner things for Killer Burger? that first one was like, oh man, but then that second one, dude, you guys were like done in and out,
Yeah, the first one, we were almost on time for what you told them.
Mhm.
Half an hour later, but that second one was.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, Boise. You all had probably got Killer Burgers. If you service Killer Burgers, then what they've been doing is I would have to look it up and find it, but there was actually, I think, like a recall on their burner plates, which basically looked like a big honeycomb, like a rectangular honeycomb. And so we get a call, hey, how long do you think it would take you to put these parts in? And I'm like, dude, I have no idea. I've never taken one of these apart. I can't even get a hold of their tech support dudes to ask them. So I shot from the hip and dudes knocked it out. And then the very following one, we did the next one the next day, man. And that was like half that, like, dude, they were in and out, man, easy money. But doing jobs like that is cool too, because it gives you an opportunity to take these things apart and see how they're put together, see how they function, see how they work. Like this one in particular, instead of having a combo gas valve like the Honeywell ones and the Pitco fryers, the pilot valve is actually separate from the burner valve. So this pilot actually does its own burner. That's the far left one. But I think I have a picture of one that is split with the hood. And on these ones here, you'll have one pilot valve that does 2 burners. So you just got to kind of look at the metal, look at what you're working with and stuff like that. And then on this one particular, you can adjust your pilot flame. So you back the screw in and out, and that will adjust the actual pilot flame. So if you're, let's say you got kind of a weak flame, look at what the manufacturer says the pilot flame ought to be. And if you're not running that, then use this screw to change your flame. I mean, these things, you can really dial these things in, and all the information you need is, you can find within 30 seconds, a minute of searching for it.
Shane, what's above that flathead looking head on that, and then to the right where the yellow paint marker is?
These ones right here.
Yeah, zoom back in. Yeah. So what is that above it? Yeah, that
This up
bunch
here?
of the flathead to the right.
This one.
Yeah, right there.
I can find out, but I'm not sure. That might be for a vent line.
That's what I was thinking. And then I see there's a yellow mark. Did you do that, or is that an
No,
adjustment?
that's factory. And then unless that is just luck by grease landing right on that screw and hardening, I would say that yellow blip is from factory too, which would indicate this valve cover has never been taken apart.
Yeah.
It's some
So
type of glue. It's pretty tough.
my guess, Travis, is that you know, they might design this valve to have a couple of different applications, and these things are just not needed in this application. And
On the flathead part, isn't that the spot you can hook up your manometer to check the outlet gas pressure?
could be.
So if you like zoom in, it shows like that's the outlet side, and that's like the only service port I see. I think you just take that out and screw in your manometer fitting.
That one
Might
might
be.
be a cone.
Is that the gas pressure one?
That's a pilot.
No, this is the pilot. As a matter of fact, Dalen, do you have a picture of that? Do you have a picture of that unit's? Oh, here we go. We'll do it like this. Check it out.
The tag.
So that
I
was
was-
a Vulcan.
And since I'm unmuted and while you're looking for whatever you're looking for, you're talking about something as a honeycomb and you're working with Killer Burger.
Yeah.
Can you go into Service Titan and do you have photos of what you were describing? Because
Oh, totally. Dude.
myself, I was lost in what you were trying to explain on that.
Okay,
Like,
check this out.
you know, like a salamander, how it has the honeycomb burner, kind of like that.
No, I don't think I've ever experienced that.
Manitowoc. Wait, how do we find how do you oh, you know what? They put them on the other ticket. That's why. Yeah, give me 1 sec. It doesn't tell me what it was. What the hell?
Calibration?
Where the hell's the ticket? Now, what did she say here? This job is job for Spokane. I had to change the location to make a project ticket. 1064991. Maybe it's on this one. I don't know. I remember something goofy happened with the tickets. Oh, that's why it was under active.
In the chat we have in here, I just posted a picture of the old one. So you can see the old one was like a kind of a mesh style. So they moved away from the mesh style to the honeycomb type that he's talking about. Yeah, there you go. So that's the mesh style.
So
what are these on, a fryer?
No, it was on just a gas griddle.
I've never seen these.
Dude,
because I've seen heat plates like this that are on. I've seen heat plates on fryers that are similar to that.
Oh wow, I've never. Wow.
Oh, you nerds didn't take pictures.
And so Shane, just explain, are they underneath the grill and then just kind of like the flame rolls on top of that blanket, for say, the honeycomb you've got? Is that how they work?
Yeah, so this essentially like
your burner tube.
Yeah, you would slide these into place underneath the flat top, and then your gas line off your manifold is hosed into this fitting right here. And then what'll happen is it distributes, but then you'll see this whole top side kind of get warm, and it should
Yeah.
radiate flame off the whole entire thing. Um,
Yeah, it kind of
these
works as like those buddy heaters, right?
essentially, yeah. In fact, check this out. AccuTemp GGF 120. All right, let's do this.
Has anybody else seen these on grills before?
Nope.
My understanding, the only one I've seen it on is AccuTemp, and they're a newer manufacturer that set us up an account with.
Interesting.
Yeah, AccuTemp. Oh, here you go. There's the griddle. So just again to reiterate how quickly you can find crap on Partstown. I found it in like 30 seconds. So that is the dude we were working on. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Okay.
I
So
would
here's
imagine it would have the griddle top to be their heating surface to be more equal than you would with
yes.
just like straight burner tube.
It gives you a lot more surface area to heat evenly.
Yeah.
A tube you're going to have hot spots. What these are supposed to do is evenly coat the entire plate simultaneously. That way you don't have any hot spots. But yeah, essentially what you would do and what they did was
So
take
what
the
was the recall on them?
I don't know exactly. Basically, the GM called me, hits me up one day, and he says, "Hey, I got a box full of parts for my AccuTemp that are warranty replacement." And I says, "Okay, cool." But as far as the like service bulletin or the reason why, I don't know. But what they did give us to put in was way better than the crap that was in there before.
So when
So
you replace those, did you have to lift the flat top griddle
no,
part, or is it all
Dalen,
slide in?
Dalen, you want to
So
share with class?
yeah. So let me see if the photos. I was just looking at the photos. Basically, you lift the flat top. It'll sit on the back. You disconnect your gas hose, and then you tilt the flat top on its back, and it will kind of balance like that with its legs. And then once I figured that out, it's super fast because I think in the instructions they tell you, oh, just unbolt this, unbolt that, and you kind of pull it out from the front. But once I figured out you can just tip it up, you have access to all your bolts and screws are right there. And then instead of having to pull it out through the whole face of it, you just drop it down and then insert the new one.
Cool.
So dumb. See, I took a ton of pictures, but maybe somebody can answer me this. Why, when I take a bunch of pictures, do they not pop up in my library? It's kind of
So I'm
dumb.
trying.
I always find that job history.
Well, it is, and I'm trying to find the ticket, but I don't know why I can't find this damn
You
ticket.
can just look at the customer and you can see all photos tied to the customer.
Yeah, let's do that. Maybe she put it under this other location, right? Oh, Killer Burger AccuTemp. Matt Wiley, what the hell were you doing up here in October?
Well, when she makes a new ticket that doesn't have any time clocked into it, she can't complete it unless she just assigns a random person.
I know, I was just kidding.
But I imagine you go back to the original job that had to get canceled and moved over. I bet that location has all the photos on it. So if you just search Killer Burger, you should be able to just to view all photos.
So have we only been running AccuTemp warranty calls in northern Idaho, or have the other branches been getting some too?
I want to say, aren't those the new griddles that Freddie switched to? Remember when Jairus with switching griddles. That's what started the whole AccuTemp thing. Was for Freddy's.
Yeah, Freddy's
Okay.
has them.
Oh yeah, is this
Jairus
it?
was saying how they like make the perfect burger and the perfect cooked patty, and
For
They-
$15.99, it better be perfect.
Yeah, right. Cheap bastards. Oh yeah, here. Oh shit, yeah. Look at this. Here's a fryer right here that clearly that does not look right. I mean, dude, that looks crazy.
That
That's
type will have baffles inside as well, inside those burners.
and this is
Tubes.
the same exact fryer as the Jade that was at Cafe Rio. So like literally the same design. A complete turd. I know you got, man, where are the freaking pictures? See, I don't know if they're under Killer Burger or if they're under AccuTemp or Killer Burger / AccuTemp. That's what's throwing this off.
It's all right.
Oh, here we go.
What was the what was actually, you know what? Yeah.
So this is kind of, I'll put it in the chat. This is kind of what the new ones look like. I can't find a photo of the actual ones, but
and all Shane's really shown us just recently is why everyone busts everyone's chops about their photos during checkout.
Dude, seriously, yeah, like I'm looking and I'm like, damn it, dude, like exactly. Yeah, because it's like, oh man, like I just want to find one. Actually, Dalen, what was the brand of that thing again?
AccuTemp.
Accu Steam. All right, let's see. AccuTemp or Accu Steam? And then what was the model number? GGF 120. 3650. Whatever, close enough.
It was a
Do the F series one.
So it's AccuTemp. It's a Accu Steam by AccuTemp. Then I have the model here if you want it.
Yeah, what is it? GGF 120.
GGF 120 1B Bravo 3650.
S2 or T1? We'll go T1. Oh, you butthole. I wanted to see.
S is probably Steam.
Oh, dude, this is going to piss me off.
I put a picture in the chat that shows the style the new one is.
You want to go potty?
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like that. That's what they look like.
In fact, Modine or Resner, they have some electric heaters, space heaters that utilize the same exact thing. It's just like that kind of crisp honeycomb where the whole entire thing heats evenly. Oh,
Well, buddy heaters. I have one of those I use for ice fishing.
so you guys went Friday the next morning, didn't you? Or was that, no, that was Wednesday, Thursday. Okay. 1065275. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Look at that puppy.
Oh yeah, there you go.
That's the new style or the old style?
That's the new one that got put in. Hold on one second. Come on. So now that flame is essentially going through all of that stuff. So definitely a lot better than the crap that's on the floor. I'm kind of bummed I didn't get to see. I mean, we did run it, but I didn't really pay attention to or take pictures of what this looked like as it was burning. But I mean, just looking at the material type and the, you know, the structure of it, this thing is way more sturdier and definitely a lot tougher as far as this material goes versus this crap that's over there. I don't even know what that crap is. But yeah, did you guys have to so you guys had to take this whole front panel off, right?
Yep.
And then there's your gas valves.
Yep.
And then there's 1 and 2 that go off and go to the burners. So take all of that stuff off. I mean, personally, I would just disconnect these temperature probes off the board, and let those dangle or throw them up across the top because I wouldn't want to pull all that out. But then, yeah, you take this back lid off and then whoop, thing just slides out. You slide the new one in and reconstruct.
Yeah, it's a full kit too, so it's not just the burners. It comes with new orifices. It comes with new. I think it comes with new sensors, but it comes with that new board. That's the new board right there.
Yeah.
Comes with new screws. It comes with everything.
But AccuTemp again, like, and we're doing. Who are we doing now? Ready Kitchen 2. Ready Kitchen, man. Shit, they've been tearing it up, bro. Like, we just got. They sent us a little reach-in evaporator, and they're just like, here's parts. Go put it in. Like, with an NTE, but they're also willing to pay, which is cool. But yeah, man, anytime we get little hookups like this, like, dude, we had never done this before and never really torn one of these apart. So, I mean, I don't know how the hell it pulls apart. None of us do. Look at this one, manifold pressure, 5 inches water column, and it tells you the BTUs per hour, volts, model number. But I mean, again, dudes, like, you can find the info so fast, like everything you need to know, man, right here. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, does anybody have any questions? Was there something that I didn't cover that we didn't cover?
No, I just kind of, if you guys are able to, and you're working on a new piece of equipment like this, that, maybe some of the other guys, including myself, haven't been involved in, like, if you can make, some type of video while you're doing it to share with the team, it's only going to help us all.
Oh, for
So,
sure, man. Well, and what bums me out is, dude, I took a lot of pictures, but iPhone updated, and ever since it updated, like, my photos are all screwed up. I'm kind of bummed because I had a lot of pictures from that job and I don't know where the hell they went. But we can do that. I think next time what might be cool is doing like what are those videos some guys do, but they set their phone there and they basically film the whole entire job, but then it like fast forwards it.
well, that's
You need a
time lapse, but
GoPro.
yeah, you need like GoPro or set your phone up somewhere. You don't want to time lapse it because then you'll miss a bunch of stuff, you know.
Gotcha.
Tutorial video. You want the whole thing. Talk through it.
And that's the weird thing. Like, we work on a lot of stuff. I mean, dude, I worked on what's that thing at Chili's? It's like a steamer, but it's what they cook their ribs in. And I never worked on one before. We haven't really ever worked on one before. And it was like, sweet, dude. And ended up doing a bunch of repairs to it. And what's kind of cool is when you work on something you've never worked on before, it's an awesome opportunity to figure out what everything is, what it does, how it's built, how to take it apart. And you can actually learn how the equipment works, and you're getting paid to do it. Yeah, dude, my phone's well, I got a picture of Dustin doing a duck face. Yeah, all my pictures are gone, man. But yeah,
I don't
I mean,
know.
you're basically pulling that whole thing apart and slapping the new things in and then just rebuilding it.
Well, Shane, I appreciate you taking the time and putting this training together. Is very informational and very thorough on everything. So,
Well, I apologize it wasn't better. We've been actually pretty busy with certain things, or I have, so I didn't get to put as much time into the finesse of it all, but I think the most important thing for guys that they can realize is utilize Parts Town, get your manual, and while you're on the job, read this, man. And that goes the same for ice machines, for package units, for whatever you're working on, man. The literature, that's where you're going to learn everything. And it'll kind of kill two birds with one stone. I know in the past, some customers might call in and say, "Oh, well, your technician was on his phone," Uh, that's just the day and age that we live in. But if you're reading literature and diagnosing a unit, it should eliminate that as well. So I wouldn't be like too concerned about being on your phone if you're using it to diagnose something. But there is just so much. I mean, here you go. Here's troubleshooting on that fryer, whatever it was, the solstice thing. And I remember me and Jeremy, I don't remember exactly what we were doing, but even going through this very same relay, I was kind of like, and he was like, we don't know, dude. Like, Jeremy, do you remember exactly what the issue was with that?
In terms of what?
Like, I don't remember. I remember diagnosing this or helping you. We were talking through this thing together, but I don't remember what the problem was.
Oh yeah, it was the board wouldn't engage, like the automated controls on the computer wouldn't actually turn on to like engage like the pilot or anything like that on that fryer. And it was because on those solid state controls for the Solstice Supremes, they have the auto and the manual tab at the top left of those solid states. Whereas the ones at Five Guys, I don't know if they're a newer or older model, but the ones at the Picos at Five Guys don't have those manual and automatic. So I hadn't seen it before. So I guess when they had turned the fryer off for a gas leak, they had shut off the auto and the manual. They had turned it over to manual, so it wasn't automatically turning on the solid state to engage the sequence of operations. So yeah, you and I were just sitting there like jumping things out, trying to get it to work. And the Pitco guy was like, "Yeah, was that switch on the manual side?" And we were like, "Yeah." He was like, "Yeah, flip it auto." And then it started working. So yeah, that's what the problem was.
Hey, who are the dudes that dispatch for Chili's? Champs. Yeah, and sometimes I mean you'll get to a point where you're just like, dude, let's call tech support. And dude, I tell you what, I don't know how you guys feel about Subway or their Mary Chef toasters, but I think it's uh uh what's the term? But all of us up here in the north, we hate those Mary Chef toasters. They're piles of crap. Their tech support sucks. And dude, we've cut our teeth on those things. Like, if you want to know something about a Mary Chef toaster, bro, call me or one of my guys. We know more than their freaking tech support people know.
Replace the gasket.
I
said replace the gaskets. That's been the main cause of most of them.
Yeah, dude. Talking about microwaves and shit and like having to get special meters and stuff to measure microwaves. And it's like, yo, like I do refrigeration, not like NASA stuff. I got a lot of pictures on this ticket. Where would the new ticket be to show all those pictures? How do you find the damn... Travis, do you know? Do you know where to find pictures on a freaking ticket like this? They're not there. Dustin, do you know?
Is it a project?
Yeah.
Now
It
just
got
put
turned...
jobs and appointments.
Jobs and appointment, okay.
And it's got to be on one of those.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Dirtbag, where's my damn photos and videos? Is this the combi one, I hope? Yeah, okay. Ah, here we go. Okay. So has anybody worked on...
I think you guys are the only ones that have actually received calls from Mary Chef.
Oh, dude, Mary Chef. Ugh. So this is a steamer. I mean, it's Hotside, bro. I mean, no gas. It's just electrical and water, right? You can run into crazy stuff like this. And we didn't really touch electrical Hotside stuff because there's very little kind of to know about, you know, that. But this is a Convo Clean. It's a combi oven. Looks like a bunch of fun in there. But what this dude does is it's a steamer, and this is how like Chili's gets their freaking their ribs. Like, man, the meat just falls off the bone. Is because as it's cooking, it'll mist a little bit of water in there and turn it to steam, and now you're steam cooking your ribs, and then it's got a self-clean function on this thing, and it wasn't working because the chemical pumps were not pumping. So here I am trying to like figure out why this thing's not working right. And it has nothing to do with heating or anything. It has everything to do with a little chemical pump. So, you know, you're going to run into crazy stuff like this. There's the actual pump itself right there. And then there's
the ovens at Smith's were like that too.
Yeah, I've had to change a few of those pumps out at Smith's.
Yeah. So, and honestly, man, I knew nothing about this. There you go. There's the whole pump center. I just took the whole bastard out. Put the new one in. But this is something that they cut. Dude, this tube is too short. That sucks. We didn't know anything about this. And honestly, everything that I learned about this turd and what the parts were and how it works and all that stuff, I just called the dude and said, hey, man, tech support, do you have any PDFs on this equipment? He emailed them to me, and then I just did some homework. Started familiarizing myself with the LEDs and how to code. You can actually code into the screen, and you can go to the IO board and you can turn stuff on and turn stuff off and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it is a freaking oven, dude. Like, all these things. I mean, anything you could possibly want to know. And I think knowing this stuff is really what's going to make everybody better. You know, time on the job and experience of working stuff. Sure. Like, I think most things just takes time to get good at. But with the information we have available at our fingertips, like, man, we can put that time and shrink it, to where it takes far less time for us to get really freaking good and knowledgeable of what we're working on. And so I think part of the thing with everybody is going to be um, read the literature, learn the unit, learn it, know it, love it. Um, and you're going to become so much better, so much faster, that you guys want to get better. You want to know this shit. You put in a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, research it, read the manuals, and dude, you'll be surprised the time it's going to take for you to become a champ at all of this type of equipment is not going to be that long at all. I know Hotside's kind of got like it puts a bad taste in everybody's mouth, but in reality, Hotside will keep you busy. When hours slow down because it's nice outside, well, restaurants cannot afford their Hotside to go down. Up here, I don't know why, but they seem to split Hotside. They don't like to use their refrigeration guys for their Hotside stuff, but coincidentally, Dustin, Travis, David is working for a Hotside company, and he supposedly just fixed a hot lamp at Chili's, but it's not working right. So I'm going to try to, take up Hotside. And if you guys are at a restaurant where we don't do their Hotside, ask them, hey, dude, we do Hotside. Like, what's up? So, but
I'll just add, Shane, you are right on the manuals. And, if you guys are working on it and you have that manual and you're reading through it, and then you call tech support, they're going to read exactly the same stuff that you could read straight out of the manual. And most of the time, like if you have a question outside of what that manual is already saying, they're not going to be able to help you out much farther. I've experienced that myself, and so I was the same way. I just kind of drove and trained myself through reading through it myself and understanding it that way. So,
and honestly, dude, I think, through previous talks and with, coming up in cold tech on my own, and it's obvious that Hotside kind of blows. Like, if you're used to doing refrigeration all the time to now you got to go look at a little fryer, like, yeah, that sucks. Like, I mean, it is greasy, it is dirty, it is nasty. Some of the things that you can do to make it easier on yourself, excuse me, is do little, things that like I do, throw down a piece of cardboard so you don't ruin your pants. You could even, for a while, I was rolling with a Hotside bag. So I had like an 11-in-1, an adjustable wrench, and a pair of like pliers, some channel locks. But they weren't the fancy stuff from Home Depot. They were the crappy crap tools from like Harbor Freight. Like, dude, I'm not trying to ruin a freaking $30 insulated screwdriver on a fryer. No, dude, go get one from Harbor Freight, something that's like $1 or $2, and use crappy tools on Hotside. That way you don't ruin them. And if you get grease all over them, who cares? It was just $1, Don't ruin your good fancy tools on greasy equipment,
I think too, like Hotside, I think is just that uncomfortableness of not doing it much.
Yeah.
Guys that aren't here anymore, a lot of people have complained about like, oh, we need more training. And like, we try our best to do training, but if you really think about it, outside of these monthly trainings, how much like formal refrigeration training did any of us get? Like, we all started very beginning, day one, with zero knowledge of refrigeration. And yeah, there were people that could teach us tips and tricks along the way, but everything that like we've all learned in refrigeration so far was just exposure to it. None of us went to a fancy school that taught only refrigeration, but like Hotside's like the same thing. It's like, it's almost like a career within a career, and Yeah, at first we don't really know. We're not familiar with the sequence of operations. We're not familiar with the terminology or the parts, and there's really not, like, we do our best to like find trainings. A lot of the hot side companies are hard to get trainings with. So a lot of them have to be like factory certified, and it's not easy. But I mean, okay, we all go to a thermal or an RSD class about ice machines one time, and that doesn't really make us ice machine masters. What makes us ice machine masters is working on them repeatedly and reading the manuals. And I think a lot of the bad stigma or bad vibes around hot slide is just because people aren't comfortable in environments they're not familiar with. But if we just slow down and make ourselves familiar, I think like we'll all find like it's not as complicated as we initially fear it's going to be.
And to add on that, I think that's the learning curve, and that's sort of the thing. Like the stigma of hot side is we don't work on it all the time. We don't see it as often as we see other stuff. Therefore, we're less experienced in it. And if any of you are like me, I get pissed off at stuff that I don't understand. And I get even more pissed off when I'm trying to fix something that I don't understand. And without really having that, I mean, has anybody tried to work on a Taylor ice cream machine without the ability of their tech support? Because if you don't have a badge number, they won't even talk to you. The only thing you can do in that situation is pull up the literature and figure it out, and but
Yeah, don't be scared of it. Get your hands in there. You'll learn. That's how I did it.
Well, and there are tools, and the thing that I wanted to get out of this training more than anything over the how to and how does this work is hopefully you guys might change the way that you approach your job and you approach your career. Um, this, I feel, above time on the job and experience. And well, I'm really good at this one individual ice machine because I've been working on them for 20 years. Well, you can get just as much knowledge in 2 hours that you can in 2 years experience as or 20 years experience as far as how the equipment is supposed to work, as far as troubleshooting tips. I got a website right here that I found. It's got all of the technicians handbooks for all the units that Manitowoc has put out. The Indigo NXT is the most common ice machine that we're going to run into out in the field. So by clicking on this website, loading up the handbook, dude, literally, when you call tech support, this is what they're reading. And so if you had this at your fingertips and you can go, okay, I got a nice machine that ain't working right. Well, instead of pulling your pud and trying to figure it out by guessing, or instead of calling in Manitowoc and then sitting there hoping that they call you back, screw that, dude. Open up the technician's book. And I mean, dude, this is something that, me and my team, we have just recently gone through. I didn't know about all this stuff until recently. But look, here's this ice machine. Here's its sequence of operation. And this verbatim tells you exactly the process in which this thing works. And it tells you the timings and how long should this stuff be doing, so you know all the information. Here's charts and stuff like that, which parts are energized during what sequence, stuff like that. One of the things that caused them a lot of issues on ice machines and a lot of different types of equipment we work on, especially at Dollar Tree and grocery stores, is sensors. What is the problem with the sensor? How do I figure out, well, at what temperature, what resistance, what ohms reading should I be reading? Well, we don't know that. You can't, that's not something that you can just guess. So having the information that tells you exactly what it should be, all of a sudden you're going from taking 5 minutes to find the answer to what you're looking for instead of possibly 2 hours or longer. Here's error codes and everything. I mean, and this is just one unit, you know, really quickly before we move on or move out. Doing it on the computer is easier because I can just type it in. But look at there. Allows the ice machine to operate up to 72 hours if the ice thickness probe E19 fault and or water probe sensors fail. See safe operations mode. I mean, dude, you get a T1 fault, boom, it's going to tell you exactly what the problem is. And then it even has those resistance values, and it tells you, you know, what each sensor is supposed to be reading, when, where, and why, and how. So very good thing to have is these technicians handbooks. In fact, I think if you go to the Manitowoc class, I think they give you a set, but you're going to get more, I think, out of having this book on you or being able to flip through this book. I think you're going to gain a lot more than perhaps a training class. Because when we go across the country to a training class, we're not really thinking about the training class, you know. But you've got everything you could possibly want to know right there. You can find the answers to your questions immediately. Here's another website I saved off Manitowoc's website. But dude, I mean, whatever you want to know about your freaking ice machine that you're working on, you want to use this website. Look at this. It's got like every single service bulletin relating to whatever unit I'm on. And ice machines are a bitch because they're very complicated and I personally don't like them. But now that I've got this information at my fingertips, I love them, dude. It's like, put me on them, you know? And you can literally find any, like, okay, here's some random, you know, condensing unit, right? Oh, here we go. There's a parts breakdown too. There's all my parts numbers. So, and this goes for anything that is in Manitowoc's catalog, even the old crap that doesn't exist anymore, like we got up here at Outback. They've got ice machine equipment that model number no longer exists. But if you do your homework or say, hey, this is my model number, Google it really quick, see what maybe it changed to, then go to this website, look for your unit, and then boom, there's all the information you could possibly want to know as far as the parts, where they're located, and what the part number is. You don't know what the capacitor is on that unit? Well, cool, there's your part number. So you can take that part number, go to RSD's website or Manitowoc or Parts Town, throw that part number in there, and it'll tell you exactly what that part is. Maybe, you know, you don't know a part, or you can't find a part, or you don't know the part number. Well, do you really want to freaking sit there on hold for RSD or thermal or worse yet, tech support? Hell no, dude. I want my information now. I don't want to wait, right? So there's tools and there's things that you can do as technicians to make your life so much better, so much easier. And the ironic thing is that all the information you need is right in front of you. And so perhaps the next time you go to work on an ice machine, grab the freaking book, dude. Grab the handbook, whatever you're working on, and have it at your disposal as you're diagnosing. You know, me and Dalen, I think we ended up pulling some sensors out, and you had to dunk them in ice water, and it said, okay, yeah, between these two resistance readings, you're good. If you're above that resistance value or lower, junk it. It's bad. You know, like, we start applying ourselves and changing the way we think about the job and how we approach the job, dude, nobody is going to be better. There's no way we're going to get beat by anybody. So just thought I'd throw that in there too. Yeah. So. End rant. Anybody got any questions on Hotside or how to maybe find some information or how to make your job easier? Any questions?
I'll just say too, I've had manuals that I couldn't find that you can simply usually call the manufacturer and they're more than happy to email you the current manual.
Yep. As a matter of fact. So this dude was cool, and specifically exactly what Dustin just said. I called Well Built, talked to this dude, Robert McDonald, and I said, hey man, well, dude, oh man, I would have totally changed his name to Ronald. That shit would have been funny. Here's the password to hack into the unit that I was working on. But then look at this, dude. Sends me a link for their service download center, Convatherm service videos. I mean, and I think I kicked this up to Dustin and Travis, but man, if you call the manufacturer and ask them for the dude, they'll get trigger happy and send you like tons of crap. Like, there is nothing else I could ask of this guy as it pertains to Convatherm ovens, like their entire product line.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like my experience with tech support, if you call with no tool in hand, no knowledge, no information, it's hard for them to help you. And I think they're easily frustrated. But if you call and you have like this excited tone and here's what you've done and here's this, but you just want more information and you want to learn more and you want to understand it better, like I think that kind of creates more of a relationship that leads to, like AccuTemp, us becoming a certified vendor because no one else in Idaho really is. Or, you asked me about that Mary Chef or whatever. Like,
yeah,
we've never worked on it before, but you called and said, hey, this customer has this and no one can seem to fix it. And every time like we've reached out to a manufacturer about more information or being a partner with them rather than just like, I don't know what I'm doing, just help me, like it's actually led to like really good opportunities for Coltech and even eventually has led to like training opportunities as well.
Oh, exactly, man. And that's the thing about tech support and especially warranty service departments. Look, dude, this is a Stolting ice cream machine from 1990. Like, I was only a year and a half old when this shit came out. But look, I mean, dude, you're working on a unit that's old as balls, and you're like, man, even tech support, you might get a new guy, and he's like, dude, we don't go that far back in literature. My ass, it's right online. Like, and I just pulled this from freaking Parstown, dude. Like, especially when it comes to the companies like Ready Kitchen and Well Built and some of those, like, man, if we know their equipment and we do a good job, dude, they will freaking call us and will be their preferred vendor to do their warranty repairs and stuff. Like, we got a class coming up here in a couple of days for Stolting, because the guy up here that does Stolting, supposedly it's like one dude and he's overworked, but he won't give us any work until we attend this class. But then it's like, all right, dude, once I take your class and my guys take this class, like, I want some calls, give us a chance to prove ourselves, because guess what? So many different chain restaurants that we are not currently servicing have this piece of equipment. And case in point, Dutch Bros up here, they have those Taylor frozen drink machines. I don't know if you guys got those down south, but there's only one company. The owner calls me, he says, dude, I got my nuts in a vice. Like, there's one company up in this whole entire area up here in Spokane that is Taylor certified. And anytime that dude's machine goes down, he's waiting 2-3 weeks before someone even comes out and diagnoses it. And then he's waiting even longer before they come back out and freaking fix it. So we get good at understanding this equipment. These warranty companies, these service providers, because a lot of the times what's going to happen is if Dairy Queen has a stolting unit, it's going to break. They're calling Consolidated Supply because that's the phone number that they're told to call. That's their local stolting rep. Well, if Barry's too busy to run it, now Dairy Queen's either going to have to wait, or they can call Cold Tech and say, hey, I got a call for you. I know you guys can take care of it. Go run it for me. Like, it's another avenue of work.
You still get Dairy Queen calls up there, Shane?
We got one call at the store in Rathdrum for their ice machine, and then didn't get anything after that. And then we actually got a stolting call from the local Dairy Queen here in CDA. And I found out that when Dairy Queen called stolting, they directed him to Consolidated Supply or Concession Supply in Spokane. And that guy told the customer, Dairy Queen, yo, call Cold Tech. They're right down the street and they know the equipment.
That's crazy. We used to do a lot. I used to get a lot of work for them last winter, but then like over the spring, I was told by their facilities guy they went in-house. So like we don't get any work for them anymore.
Well, to be honest, dude, that's just the way it's going, man. Right before I moved up here, there was a company that handled all the fries, handles the some of the other grocery stores in town, Safeway. Well, these grocery stores and some of these chains, McDonald's even, they have their own in-house service crews. Like, I got an opportunity at the McDonald's in Coeur d'Alene and it didn't work out. And basically I was just there to train their monkey with a tool bag that they had hired and didn't know shit. So they're all going in-house. Safeway poached half of one of my biggest competitors up here, Market Refrigeration. Took half their techs. They became Safeway in-house guys, but now supposedly the in-house guys don't like it and they're wanting to not do that anymore. And so hopefully eventually some of that stuff is going to change. Now, Well-Built, Stolting, Taylor, beyond it, Taylor's, good luck, dude. I've been trying to get this pud on the phone to get me a badge number for months. And the dude basically said there's only two ways that you can get a Taylor badge. You can either come work for me or you can go work for Taylor. And it's like, shit, no. I want a badge so I can pick up more work and pick up Taylor so I can start advertising to customers, hey, we fix Taylor. We're a warranty service provider. You'd be surprised how much extra work you can generate. And like, look at this Ready Kitchen. They came out of nowhere, dude. Don't know how they got our phone number, but all of a sudden, like,
that would be thanks to me on that one. I was talking to the warranty company and they're like, oh, we have nobody around here to service our stuff. I'm like, Dustin, give him a call.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Well, I mean, that's how it works, dude. That's kind of like, Cold Tech nepotism, dude. Like, if I'm able to get certain things to happen up here, well, then let's open it up for Southern Idaho and vice versa. If you guys got, good relationships with customers or entities or people down there, let's use some of that nepotism and help each other out. And now all of a sudden, we're not just one division out of three. We're one company that covers a whole state. I've had some customers up here that might, be a good opportunity for Boise. And it's like, all right, dude, let's try to run it to the ground and get it, it's not always, it's easier said than done, but
I think another example, sorry to interrupt you, but another good example is like why like quality customer service is so good. I mean, don't get me wrong, Freddy's can be a real headache sometimes, but the reason why we even got in with AccuTemp is because Jairus told them, if I buy your stuff, I am using my vendor. And if you don't train my vendor and you don't give them access to your equipment and your parts and your resources, then I'm not buying your unit. So yeah, we can call all the manufacturers, but I mean, if you're a manufacturer and you're selling your one or two product line to every single Freddy's or every single Five Guys, who they trust is going to really determine if they keep buying your equipment. If your equipment sucks and no one's able to fix it and no one's able to work on it, they're
Mary
going to
Chef.
stop buying your stuff. So like, it's not even just to focus on the manufacturers and the warranty. Like, you'd be surprised how much power and say like the end customer actually has, even with the manufacturer. You know, I've encountered that with chairs as well. Hey, I can't get a hold of someone at, Turbo for. He makes one phone call. If you guys want me to keep buying this, I suggest you help my vendor solve this problem right now, or I'm buying something different. And next thing you know, like, you have their entire resource book at your disposal. And so a lot of that is not even just like me reaching out or trying to get us set up. It's, if we just do good customer service and we communicate with our customer, hey, like, this is just really weird. And like, this manufacturer is not helping me. Like, they don't want to send me parts. They don't want to do this. Like, is there someone like you can call on your end? Like, these people will light a fire under them because they're the people buying the equipment. So like, we should always, yeah, it's great to build that relationship, but if we just give all of our customers a great overall experience, they can open up those doors for us as well. Like, one day we could be a factory vendor for a company we never anticipated, all because our customer wants to not use whoever the qualified vendor is.
Then you work out a deal and say, hey man, it's a menage a trois. You got the equipment manufacturer, you got the customer who's buying that equipment and using that equipment. Well, who's the third leg? The dudes that fix that equipment when it takes a dump. And us as a service provider have an opportunity to not only help our customer, but then we also help the manufacturer too. Because like Dustin just said, like I told the owner of Subway up here, he asked me when we first started working together, what do you think about these Mary Chef toasters? And I says, to be honest with you, never worked on them. I don't know anything about them. I says, but I'm about to learn everything about them. And we did. We RTFM and we learned these things, and we came to the conclusion that number one, their tech support basically is just guessing, because like 9 times out of 10, they always send us or recommend us the wrong part. And that falls back on us. Now we either have to take it in the shorts and look like dumbasses, like, oh, you guys misdiagnosed it, you got the wrong part, or we got to throw the vendor under the bus and say, no, man, this is what tech support told me to replace. This is exactly the part that I replaced. What more can you do? Guess. If tech support's wrong, you're kind of screwed. And at the end of the day, my final recommendation for this guy at Subway was to not just move away from Mary Chef toaster, the E4S is what it was, the E4S, but move away from that toaster. But it might be a good idea to move away from Mary Chef altogether, because as a company, as a manufacturer of this equipment, not only is it their duty to build and send good working equipment, but then also, what kind of company are you if your equipment sucks, but then your tech support sucks too? Like, that's not a company that I want to rely on. That's not a company that I want to necessarily work with. I would rather work with the guys that their equipment is awesome and their tech support's freaking phenomenal. You know, that is a very solid, strong argument to every customer that has Taylor ice cream machines, why they should maybe switch to Stolting, or maybe at least pick up the phone and call the dudes at Stolting. Because Stolting, I have learned, their tech support is phenomenal. Those dudes are amazing, and their equipment is pretty freaking solid. And you don't have to deal with any bullshit like having a badge number. And then the customer doesn't have to sit there and wait 5 weeks to have the only contractor in the Pacific Northwest come out and diagnose it and fix it. So maybe we create a situation that's better for our customer, but then Cold Tech severely capitalizes on that. Like Dustin was saying, maybe these manufacturers, like we're doing with Stolting up here, our team up here is going to have the latest and greatest run through of their equipment and their technology. You know, we get Boise, Twin, Idaho Falls, that same sort of connection. Well, now all of a sudden, Cold Tech is not really necessarily known for being ice cream, soft serve manufacturer, you know, service provider. Nobody looks at their, you know, their Taylor machine and thinks Cold Tech, right? Well, we can create a situation that where when they look at their Stolting equipment, they think of Cold Tech. And that same philosophy, that same principle can apply to almost everything that we work on in our industry as it relates to our customer and what equipment they're using.
I'm a big believer too, and you know, like some companies, they'll send a guy to like Stolting, and that becomes their Stolting guy. Well, you know, life happens and people move on or things change. Like, we should use all these training opportunities to get a group of people trained to then turn around and give everyone else the same exact information.
Hell yeah.
You know, you can train the entire team for nowhere near the cost, rather than just say, oh,
how much
like
does
these
it cost
guys
to
are
send a guy
Stolting
to,
certified.
how much does it cost to send one guy to Manitowoc to do the Manitowoc training? Like
I
ballpark.
don't know. I think I went to the Stolting one in Wisconsin, and it's a couple grand.
Yeah, a couple $1,000, man, that's a lot. But then look at it at this viewpoint. Do we rotate out guys, you know, 4 guys at a time, couple $1,000 a pop to Wisconsin to learn the same piece of equipment? Or let's try to figure out ways to where perhaps we can learn the equipment like the back of our hand and probably get a better education talking about it amongst ourselves at little to no expense.
Because the
Nothing.
thing you're not going to get at Stolting is the flaws and the defects and the things that don't go smooth. When you have a machine sitting on a table and it's already disassembled and it's not in a real work environment and it's brand new and they know it works, it's pretty easy to say, let me show you how to change the seals and let me show you how to calibrate this. It's total different in the field. So if someone learns the base knowledge and then actually works on it, you know, they're going to be able to say, oh, yeah, if you talk to Stolten, they're going to say, all you have to do is this, this, this. Well, just so you know, this is dang near impossible because you can access it. It's hard to reach. And here's like the tips and tricks I learned to make it easier. Like, that's something you're not going to get from any factory training.
And
they're not going
Is
to
Barry from
equipment.
concession? Is Barry from concessions? Is he for Stolting too?
Yeah. So up here,
I've been doing a lot of his crap. Well, I haven't been doing a lot, but I did a few calls for him.
From Concession Supply?
Yeah, Barry. I have his
Hell yeah,
phone number
dude.
saved.
Yeah, dude. So Concession Supply, they're more or less just a vendor. They're a parts house. But the dude who manages it, Barry, he's also like a quasi Stolting field rep. Like he goes, dude, he's in Seattle all the freaking time fixing equipment. And that was the genesis of all of this was I went in there to just get an account. Yeah, talk about Stolting. This one thing led to another. And then all of a sudden he says, well, okay, well, I want to throw a training class together. And then I'm going to start basically trusting companies. But I'm so buried, I'm going to start sending work out to people. So, dude, I had no idea. But knowing that, that's freaking amazing because we haven't even run through his training class, the class that, I mean, he's flying in a Stolting rep. So it's not going to be in their house where everything's nice and shiny. And let's face it, most training classes, they're there to sell you. They're not there to be technical support guys. They're there to tell you what this new and improved unit can do. Like we went to the Manitowoc one in Twin Falls, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. And it wasn't really anything about troubleshooting, diagnosing, or how the equipment works. It was about all the bells and whistles, you know? And, but when you bring them out of their element and they're coming to a shop that's a bunch of dudes that are technicians. And dude, we're there to learn how the equipment works, you know, and that was the whole point that Barry set this up was I don't want to be the only Stolten guy in this whole area. It's too much work. So this is the type of this is, I think, the stuff, this is the magic, man. This is the stuff that if we can make this kind of stuff happen throughout all areas of Idaho, holy shit. Like,
I just thought he was just some dude that sold equipment. I didn't know he was that.
yeah, he's, yeah. So,
He didn't
yeah.
say that.
And I'm surprised that he gets calls all the way down there too. So that makes me wonder. I really want to talk to Barry and pick his brain, but how big is his reach? Because we know he's in Seattle, but if he's getting calls from Pokey or Twin, like, dude.
Idaho Falls is where I've been dealing with it.
Culver's, you know, your friend there, Shane.
Oh my God, I miss her.
I had to go see her the other day or a couple weeks ago too.
Oh, she knows Stolting better than the tech support guy.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does.
Yeah, me and Dylan did that repair overnight, dude. That dude's just like, here's a shitload of parts. Go put them in. Like, okay, cool. You know, and the amount of opportunities that could stem from, you know, stuff like the well built, the ready kitchens, the you know, the Stoltings, the whatever. I mean, I feel like every branch has their special thing, you know, but it's like, can we make that special thing statewide? Like, we should be able to, right? So I'm excited. It might be a huge shot in the dark, but I should have asked the guy who he was sending out from Stolting. I'm curious if he's got anything going on down in Boise, like the Stolting guy, not necessarily Barry, but maybe this Stolting guy is planning on coming to Boise soon or to Idaho Falls or something like that. Like, man, that would be killer. And I think that I don't think we paid for anything. I think it's all free. Like, we're not paying for shit, and they're providing us lunch, which is pretty cool too. So yeah, we could try to turn some of this shit statewide, man.
Cool. Well, appreciate all your guys' time, and you know, sorry, Shane, that it didn't work out last Thursday. I was sick and forgot to remind everyone, but
oh, you're good.
Thank you, everyone, for your guys' time and for being willing to sit in and just listen in or chime in or whatever. And you know, it's always a good time bonding with all you guys. And if I don't talk to you guys tomorrow, I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Thanks for listening to me ramble on for 3 hours.
Yeah, you did great, Shane. Good job.
Yep. Thank you.
And
all right, well, you guys have a good evening.